This episode of An Unexpected Podcast is brought to you by Todd Robbins. Thank you, Todd.
Hello, friends, and welcome to An Unexpected Podcast. I'm Ez.
And I'm Lane.
And we're talking Tolkien.
Did you forget that? That next one. We're coming to you from the Shire of America, the beautiful state of Ohio, in a little village called Amanda, and in Gandalf's Pad in the North Farthing. My friend,
Absolutely.
Just jumped the gun. You have another line. Sorry, I'm going to let you read that before I ask you how you are.
Oh, okay. Well, this week, just in case you didn't know, we're staging a comeback by raising the Shire and removing a shark from the waters of Bywater.
Wow. Have we done this before? I feel like maybe we haven't.
We've not.
Still working the kinks out. That character from before is just like, there are ramifications to that character.
Yeah, you're still trying to. So sometimes before recording, we have character voices. Mostly it's Lane, and it does take him a second to get out of that. So if he goes into some nervous laughter or just gets extremely nervous on the podcast, don't worry about it. So,
how are you, my friend? It's been a while since I've seen you.
It's crazy, right?
Not at all.
Really?
Though.
No, it hasn't.
No,
I was to say
this would be great. Like if we still had that shtick going where we pretended to not like each other, and people still thought that was real. We could be like, "Whoa, nice seeing you again so soon."
Right. But it's up. I mean, it's out there that we
are friends, unfortunately, right? I mean, for everyone else.
For everyone else, yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, it's good because we've actually that's what it means. I saw you just this past weekend, and then we got together early this week, and we did some pretty awesome recordings for YouTube and stuff, which was awesome. So I'm excited, man. I've got like a really, even though it's a different format, this is still really fun, and it's like really, really great. And I know, like, the weird thing, I don't know if we can talk about this yet or not, but like the weird thing is that tomorrow we're also going to be recording, and it's like this is all hitting so quick, and
I know it's
great.
It's kind of a lot to process because like what did I say to you? Like in 18 hours we'll be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like usually we got to wait a couple, like literally in actual real time, a couple weeks before. Okay, well the very last chapter, it's going to be 2 weeks from now. We know that, but like just the way things are happening we got a special guest for the end of this thing, the Grey Havens, and he's available tomorrow. So like tomorrow, late morning, we're going to be wrapping this thing up. So
yeah, it's go time. Yeah.
It's wild, man.
It's great. But how you doing, buddy? How's it going over there?
I'm doing great. Into summer break, wrapping up the school year was weird. It was bizarre. Like just cleaning up a room where kids hadn't been for like 2 months, doing report cards when learning had been so different. The one really, really cool thing was, so every year we do a clap out, a 5th grade clap out. And so last day of school, everyone gets out a little bit early, except for 5th grade. And we line the halls all the way out to the front door, and with kids and teachers, and we just literally clap until from the time they get downstairs to the time they get out the door. It's just it's a really cool send off. And then even also retiring teachers. So they'll go at the very back, and it's just a way to honor that transition, Yeah. But this year that obviously wasn't going to happen. So it was really cool. We did a honk out. So we lined our cars in the front row of our school parking lot, and 5th grade families in their vehicles met at the fairgrounds, which is like literally a block from our school. They drove in, our principal let them in. They drove around the drop-off pickup loop, and we just honked. Sarah was playing Celebrate Good Times. It was emotional, man. And after all those students came through, and it's like kids you hadn't seen forever that you had, it's like, oh my gosh, I was on recess duty with these kids, forgot about them. It's just crazy with everything going on. You're getting emotional, and then we had one teacher retiring. She's just an amazing, wonderful lady, Suzanne Keller, 4th grade teacher, one of a kind. Reminds me of my mom a lot, actually. And the cars came through and we're like, come on, Suzanne, walk right through the road. This is your clap out. Let's go. And she's very like shy and reserved. She wasn't going to do anything. So I came up, I'm like, come on. I was like, I used to direct traffic. Let's do this. Cause I used to be the drop off guy. So I was literally waving her down the road and, she's like crying, and waving, and we're all just, it was a great way. It was surprisingly more emotional than how we normally do it. So, yeah, that was a really cool way to kind of cap off a strange finish to a year. But you're done too, right? Was it weird for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely different. I think during times where it's trying and it's tough and you can't do what's like the norm. It's really the spirit of the thing. It's the effort that you try to put forward to try to make it as normal as you can, or to try to do something special. And I think that's what does make it maybe a little bit more emotional, is that people are going the extra mile to make that happen. So that definitely happened at our school too, and I know it's happening around the nation. So that's exciting. I've been seeing a lot of different things for our our 2020 graduates. We did a fun little. It was the same sort of thing. We had like a little parade of cars come down and got to kind of hold up signs and sit under tents and things like that. So it was neat, but definitely different. Definitely.
Yeah, big time. But it's just weird. Yeah. You like the end of the school year is always kind of a high, right? It's a time to last week of school, you don't work as hard. You have parties, you get to kind of sit back and reflect, get gifts from kids, and it's just it was so different this year. But yeah, I mean, life's good though, dude. I love being at home with the girls. It's starting to get like we have been, but it's just nice not having to check my phone and try and catch up with lessons and all this stuff and feel so divided. I don't feel nearly as divided. We are getting ready for baby number 3. I mean, we're down 2 weeks now. The end of this month, this baby's coming. So, starting to feel just kind of like, it hit me today. I was like, right before we started filming, I was outside finishing trimming and sweeping grass off the sidewalk, getting ready to go up and take a shower. And I was like, holy cow, this jump from 2 to 3 is probably going to be insane. Mm-hmm. And so Sarah and I we've just been talking about that lately. We're like, you never feel ready. And so we're a little bit stressed. We're very, very excited, obviously, but it's just, we want to be like the best parents we can for our girls. And so sometimes the reality hits, you know what I mean? And I think that's fair to share that as well. It's great to share your excitement, but I think sometimes it's good to share the reality of stuff too, where you're like, holy crap, 3 babies that are like full of life and relying on us, and that we want to communicate to so clearly that we love them and we care for them. And the pressure of that sometimes, man, it's hard to be a parent. It's even harder. It seems almost impossible to be a great parent. And so that's obviously what we're striving for, because that's what our girls deserve. And Sarah, she thinks she's striving for it. She's made it already. I'm trying to get there myself, but yeah. Just making sure that we're ready. Even stuff around the house. It's just crazy, man. It is crazy. It's gonna be here before we know it. But so much. It's funny. You worry about all this stuff, and I found myself in these moments where, like before bed, girls were goofing around. They weren't going to sleep. First time that it happened in a while. They're in the same room now, so it's just a different dynamic. And if one of them starts goofing off, the other one does. And it really it was crazy. And it was like, it was bedtime, but they weren't ready for bed. And normally, it's like, oh gosh, here we go, hours. But they're sitting there making each other laugh. And I was like, what? And normally I would feel this kind of anxiety and sort of stress. And I was like, tonight I didn't. And I was like, this is beautiful. This is, nothing else matters than our girls are together. They're laughing. They're happy. They're safe. We're in bed. It just hit me. I'm like, take the moment for what it is. Take these moments for what they are. Are they filled with joy? If they are, sit back and just enjoy it. If they're filled with something else, find ways to either appreciate that as well, or help heal it or aid it or whatever. So
yeah.
But yeah, man, life's awesome, dude. I'm so excited to be wrapping this up and getting into the Hobbit.
Yeah.
I'm also a little nervous. I don't know why. I feel like we've been building to this, man, for like 2.5 years. I told Sarah, like earlier this week, I'm like, we're almost done with Lord of the Rings. She's like, really? I was like, it's kind of crazy. I was like, this, like as long as Winnie has been alive, we've been reading in this same book. Like it's crazy.
It is. Well, first of all, I want to say too, you guys are amazing parents. Before we move on that note, I love watching you guys parent, and you guys are fantastic. And I love being Uncle Ez. And thank you for letting me be.
You're pretty amazing
Uncle
my
Ez.
friend. Oh yeah,
I love it. I love being there. And the other day when I got Winnie just went up. I don't know if you saw her. Did you see when she just sat up in the chair next to me and just sort of like, she does this thing where she just kind of. Just looks at me and I'm talking to Lane. I know she's looking at me, and so I know when I know that's happening, I'll be we'll be having a serious conversation about the podcast or something in the book or whatever, and I'll turn to Winnie and I'll just be like, right? I mean, isn't this and I just try to like include her in the conversation, and just it's a matter of fact, like she's shaking her head, yes, right, and it's just so cool. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, anyways, But yeah, man, I'm also excited, and I'm holding on to kind of this moment that I had. I think it was on Thursday when I texted you, and I'm just like, it hit me. I mean, it hit me hard. I was like, wow. Here we are at the end. And so I'm going to hold on to that. I'll share that maybe tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, it is exciting, and this is great. I'm glad that we're wrapping this up. It's what we wanted to do. We wanted to get through a reread, and we wanted to go on this adventure and create this book club, and it's turned into such an awesome thing with awesome people who have come along, who have joined the fellowship, and now we're returning back home. There are others who are going to be catching up for maybe a year or more, and it's just great. And I really, really, really I'm enjoying this, and looking forward to more.
Me too.
So.
Me too, brother. Me too. Wow. This is a good quick counsel. Let's drop some Eves. You want to drop some Eves, my friend?
Absolutely, I do.
So we do have some kind of Amazon show news. The big news really has been with the pandemic, obviously, sort of causing the show to go into hiatus. Now, some other stories have kind of been spinning and kind of vortexing in a downward negative manner since this has been going on. What we're kind of talking about is the Tolkien professor's comments on Tom Shippey and the oneclickbait.net's comments on that as well. Just this idea that he's been fired or that he's left in sort of what's it called, like with a bad taste, in not under the best of circumstances or whatever. Yeah. So
can I say real quick, because I think this is probably the most. I honestly, this is probably the most serious conversation we're going to have about it. We've had jovial conversations. We've had great conversations about this over on YouTube, but I actually do want to have kind of, because I know a lot of folks don't go listen or they're not on our YouTube channel, and so this is, I think, our chance to kind of talk about this here. And I want to say just that, like, essentially what Corey Olson, the Tolkien professor, said was that when asked, he was asked the question, can I do this? Is this okay just to jump in this?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, when asked the question whether or not Tom Shippey was fired, and that's the phrase, the word choice was fired from Amazon. I think you had the quote somewhere, but that he said essentially he struggled with it. He struggled on what to say, and ultimately said that that he was not. This is the irony in this, because it's reported someone used what he said as a confirmation that, oh yeah, Tom Shippey is out. It's that yes, he is not working actively on the project, and that he doesn't know whether that's temporary or permanent. Temporary. Yeah. Right. But when he went back to the phrasing of, like, was he fired? He kind of said, no, I don't think so, and I don't think it's that. What was the word he used?
Clear cut.
Clear cut. Yeah.
That's simple. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can, again, you can go look at his live stream, and he did struggle with it and things. So, there's
for
that.
us too, it was when we read it, it was one reaction, but when we saw it, it was a different reaction.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
When I read we read that quote a few episodes ago, and I was like, all right, well, He's not really saying anything. He's not saying that Tom Shippey, it's not a confirmation. It's also not a denial. All he's really implying is that he spoke with Tom. Tom's a good friend of his.
Right.
And that it's not necessarily that simple.
Yeah. And even when to kind of say there are things that I don't think Tom would want me to share that, and so then he doesn't share it. That's essentially what he said there on the live stream. Now,
right.
I think actually for me, and the more I thought about this, it's like where this became, that's just him on his show doing his thing, responding to a live. That is what it is. He was not trying to break news. That was asked of him, and he responded. He chose to respond to it, and we cover more of that over on our YouTube if you want to see a little more. A little more vigorous coverage of that, and have a good laugh, because we do try to make it jovial as much as possible. But I think really where it took off and other places started kind of picking this up is when the OneRing.net used his live stream as confirmation that, and they did say, to their credit, Shippey's out. But the terminology, like a lot of the phrasing around this and the word choice, is trying to insinuate or paint this image that he was out on bad terms, and I don't see any confirmation of that anywhere, really. So even with Corey Olsen, you could take it's the conclusion you draw from it. So like even with Corey, I could draw the conclusion like, oh, he was caught off guard, or that's a nervous smirk that he has, or he's playing this up. You could draw so many different conclusions with that. You don't really, you don't know. So I think. What we tried to do on YouTube there was just to draw a different conclusion, and try to take put a different spin on that, because no one really knows, and we haven't heard from the actual sources, the actual people themselves.
Exactly. So, yeah. And the other thing, like you said, I guess the reason we wanted to kind of make those videos and comment on it as well in sort of a different manner than we would necessarily on the podcast is just because we weren't seeing our point of view represented anywhere. We weren't seeing anyone kind of say, well, hang on a second, let's pump the brakes. Let's see what the cake is like. Let's wait and taste and see, right? Let's just hang on a second, and maybe the teacher's pet is having a hard time. No longer the teacher's pet. The star student is out. So it was I think it was necessary, because we shouldn't just believe something because it's alluded to from someone that a lot of people trust. You know what I mean? Until someone from Amazon or Tom Shippey himself publicly announces details, we don't know anything. The same thing was, so along with the Tom Shippey stuff was the news that the writers had all been fired. Or I don't know if they use. I think they used the terminology "fire."
Absolutely,
again.
They did. But
then I also
right.
But then I also heard them using things like "no longer working on the show," which. No one has been really working on the show, if you think about it. I mean, not in an official capacity. So it was interesting how these headlines were grabby, but then you got into the details and you're like, so there's nothing here. Like there's nothing here. So that's again why we wanted to kind of look at this and say, well, maybe this is cause for concern, I guess. But until like we actually know what's going on and official people are telling us, then why are we panicking? So I'm really proud of us for taking that kind of, and it wasn't intentional. We were just both I mean, we actually put off kind of watching those videos until a lot of you uppers were like, hey guys, this is what we're hearing. Have you heard about this? I mean, right before I hopped off Facebook for a hot minute, I remember a few posts within the group that were like, hey, Tom Shippey, like this is Corey Olsen saying this. Like what? And at that time, I was like, I don't know. I just read it and I thought, there's nothing really there. And then you and I, during this time, we're like, let's start covering some stuff about the show, like on YouTube videos, and let's see. And that was just a natural place. That's what people were talking about. And so then we sat down and watched those videos together, and we were both like, dude, this is smoke and mirrors. Like this is like not fear mongering. I don't want to be that extreme, but this is clickbait. There's nothing to talk about right now that's actually happening with the show. We're going to take some things out of context. We're going to use trustworthy sources and say that an in between the lines comment is gospel. And so that's it was nice for us to kind of balance that, I think, and temper that conversation that was going on. But
yeah, I'm with you. That's all it was. We did, because I was searching. I forgot to tell you this. I went and looked at all the other
nothing.
I went and looked at all the other like YouTube channels that were covering it, and
they're just saying the same thing, aren't they?
Oh well, they took it as gospel. They took it as absolute truth, and it's sort of definitely like they were really big YouTube channels that cover sort of like fantasy, sci-fi stuff. And that fire, those flames were being fanned, and I was just sort of like, well, maybe it's a good thing we at least have another voice out there in the dining room that kind of says, I think we just need to sit down, and I think we need to like read the books and just hang out and have a good time and wait for the kids to come out.
You need a couple hobbits to jump up in class, get on their desks, and say, guys, hold on a second, like, listen to this. Here's a joke, okay?
Right.
Or should we really believe this? But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun to talk about, but as of right now, we can't confirm any of that stuff. Whether Tom Shippey is still involved, has been fired, is just taking a break, is no longer needed for his duties. I
will say this too. So I guess the only real thing like newsworthy, and I don't know if I think you mentioned this actually before. Well, I'm not sure because we kind of shied away from all of this, but. In New Zealand, I think there is a confirmed, like the studio is shut. I mean, like they're not, when they say it's on hiatus, it's, and actually there was a planned hiatus too.
Yes, there was.
Which is interesting.
I think that also kind of muddies the waters a little bit because there was a planned hiatus that I think that they were preparing for like as soon as COVID hit and kind of like more regulated hiatuses were put in place. So that's also where it looks kind of strange and where people were kind of grasping at straws on why or how they knew the writers were fired was that they were busy on Twitter and seemed to have a lot of free time. And I think, well, that's because they're not probably working directly on the show and they probably do have free time. But so
just one thing. So one of the things that was mentioned, that was mentioned is that and I have to say this because Lane will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Are you going to be an adult about it? Are you going to be an adult?
Absolutely. Because one of the things
that's a joke because
I know. Right. But one of the things that Justin said on the OneRing.net stream was that the writing team needs to be there for filming. Well, there is no filming going on. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not even allowed to. They're not even allowed to do that. So that would actually kind of make sense that they wouldn't be there. But it is muddied because there was a planned hiatus after the first 2 episodes, which is sort of like their air quote pilot that they're trying to look at and see what we have here. Once the second season was greenlit too, from my research, and again, I don't have any inside sources. I'm telling you right now, it's complete speculation by Ez. I'll tell you that. It seems like they're looking to now once season 2 is greenlit, and you're spending $1 billion, by the way, on this is reported. That was one of the things reported, like a lot of money. Well, you're going to work to kind of make sure the breadcrumbs that you're laying in season 1 line up into season 2, and we have a real nice, clean entry into season 2. And that seems to be why they actually, before COVID or anything kind of cropped up, that was the intent, was to sort of, hey, have this break, let's set this up. And I think that comes from other veteran showrunners, another veteran showrunner who's in there saying, I think we should take a look at this. And I think it's a fine thing to do, but anyway.
I think the fact that it's caused panic is a little strange to me because, and again, I think it leads into some of our theories in those videos that we elaborate on. But if you film the first 2 episodes and they're allegedly done, J.A. Bayona, at least partially so, because they were filming before all this stuff happened. And they even, I guess before those were even filmed, they were talking about moving into season 2. That shows me that season 1 is a hit. Season 1 has everything we need.
Right.
Season 1's good to go.
Yeah.
Now, another source of controversy was that there were new writers being brought in for season 2. If that's the case, that means, okay, we've got something really good. We want to expand on that. And we talk about this in the video as well, so I won't go into too much detail, but we don't know how different these seasons are going to be as well. So just because new writers are coming in or writers from season 1 are moving off, that's pretty normal in television shows, especially when you have as large of a... I mean, I was shocked when I saw how large the writing team was for for the show. I was in a good way. I was like, oh my gosh, all these creative minds working on this, they must be coming at this in a way that we can't even imagine. Honestly,
Sure.
I mean, I think that much firepower is how you'd have to go into something like the Silmarillion, where there is a lot set in stone, but a lot that's kind of in between white spaces on the map, like things that the whole reason that Tom Shippey's involved is so that you could create some things that Tolkien didn't write in his works, but could also fit into that world. Characters, themes, paths within a story where fictional characters interact with written characters. So I think it's a sign that they're expanding and even switching up their writers into season 2. I think that's a sign of strength. I think it's them also wanting to stay. You have a good season 1, and your writers know it, and everyone knows it, and then you just roll it into season 2. I think there is definitely a mental game of trying to recreate what you did in season 1. And also on the flip side, getting complacent and thinking, wow, we can. I mean, guys, did you see how we knocked out season 1? Season 2 is a cakewalk. This is easy. Like, we know we're masters. Come on. Instead of bringing in new writers and switching things up and being like, okay, well, this is my shot. Okay, I've done great things before, but this is my shot in Middle Earth. Like, this is a sought after show. So I think it's a sign that things are going really, really well. I couldn't be less worried about the show. Now, what I was actually getting into when I went down this rabbit hole and brought all this stuff back up was that, the show had been put on hiatus. There was a planned hiatus that kind of overlapped with the pandemic hiatus. So the good news, and what makes me think that filming is going to resume probably more soon than we realize, is that it's been like, I think at this point it's been almost 2 weeks, at least a week, of no new cases of COVID in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. Like to the point where the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, is being globally praised for her response. I don't even know, there might not be anyone in New Zealand right now with confirmed COVID. That's how well they have been able to navigate this pandemic. Part of that is also because I think they're a relatively spread out country. Their population is relatively low, but they took measures and they followed them pretty closely. And a lot of people were upset about them, just like everywhere. That people were, if it affected their livelihood, their jobs, it made them upset because people got to work and they got to eat. But they were able to handle it in such a way that New Zealand's clear. Now, how they will proceed with like bringing in actors who've been in other parts of the world, and if they can get testing and they can, meet them at some kind of like neutral airport and say, let's test you. Okay, you're good. Fly in. Let's start filming again. But that is exciting to know, at least at your location, your location, where you're filming, where you have your studios, where you're out in filming locations in the wild of New Zealand, it is clear. So that just shows me that kitchen's clean. We can start cooking again. Yeah. So that's exciting. It'll be exciting to see how that kind of develops in the next few weeks. Let me see. That's really about all that's going on. I know that I'd say that's all, but we talked about a lot of stuff. But so just keep your eyes and ears out. Like the show will probably resume very quickly. It's very exciting, and I think we got nothing to worry about.
Yep.
In other corners of Middle Earth, there have been some cool things happening. Josh Gad has started this really cool series called Reunited Apart. He's been doing it kind of since the pandemic happened, where he's I think he started with the Goonies, and he's doing like Zoom and bringing all these actors and directors and composers from our favorite movies together again in a virtual space. And it's really, really cool. I actually watched the Back to the Future one when it came out, and it had me in tears. I was by the front door, just sort of curled up in a ball, crying with just pure joy and nostalgia. It's my favorite movie growing up as a kid, so it was really cool to see Michael J. Fox and, who's the guy who played Doc? Christopher Lloyd. And, like Robert Zemeckis, and it was just really cool. But He hosted recently, and you guys have all seen it, I'm sure, a reunion of The Fellowship. So it was crazy. It was literally everyone we were supposed to record this before it happened. So were you able to watch it?
So I actually only watched like the first little bit of it. I have not seen the whole thing.
It's a long one. It's 50 minutes. It's almost an hour long.
I saw that. Yeah.
But what was your reaction? What'd you think?
Well, I just initially I was like, as they started to come on there and I saw how long it was, I was sort of like, wow, I'm gonna have to really dedicate because I like emotionally and just invest in this because this is gonna be amazing. And really, what got me was how many people they were gonna have on there. I couldn't believe they got that. I was
blown away.
That blew me away. I was overwhelmed, and to hear them all laughing and sort of just that intro was amazing. It was fantastic. It was great. I mean that part. So I tabled it and I said, "Oh boy, I've got to go back and watch this." So I have not seen the whole thing, nor have I read anything about it. So I'm sort of like,
So then I won't spoil it for you then. But my reaction was the same kind of thing. I thought like the in terms of like what they talked about, I think a lot of people who love the movies, they're not going to be surprised by anything. There were a couple things that I either had forgotten or learned brand new, and I was like, whoa, okay, wow, never knew that before. But my favorite part was seeing them interact, seeing because I follow a lot of them on Instagram and stuff, the ones that are there, and you see different emotions on people's faces through social media. I saw them smiling and laughing like I've never seen them do like on personal. It's just you can see that they're connecting in a way that like I think about when I talk to you. When we talk to our friends, when uppers get together and they hang out, when family members see each other, that joy was contagious. My favorite part was, so I won't spoil it for you, but John Rhys Davies was hilarious. Mm-hmm. He may have taken the cake for funniest. I'll just say he whips out that Gimli helmet in like just hilarious fashion. It's amazing. And then Viggo, my favorite moment was when they bring Viggo in, and like the next second you see him, he's out walking away from his phone or computer or whatever, and they're like, well, Viggo's bored already. He can't, he's leaving. He's gone. He lasted 5 minutes. And it was just so funny. I'm like, that's such a Viggo. Like he was probably just going to get something he forgot and just came back. But I was like, that is so Viggo Mortensen.
Can I ask you a question? Did it remind? Because I haven't seen that yet. Did it remind? Again, I just clicked it on and started to kind of like take it in for a second. When you saw that, I guess, did it remind you? Because what I thought of was Tammy's story about how he would just up and just walk away and disappear and stuff.
Yes, yeah. Like I mean, he was notorious for. In the appendices, there's this great part where, they're filming something. I can't remember what it is. It might be like, crap, I wish this is terrible. I can't remember what they're filming. Maybe the battle sequence on Amon Hen, and there's a little break, and you see him, he slips away. Everyone's like they're changing lights or resetting the scene or whatever.
Yeah.
He slips away, and he's in that lake. He's fly fishing. Just by himself, fly fishing.
Wow.
And he's like looking over to see, he's like tying a fly. He's like looking over to see if he's needed, and he's talking to the camera guys, and they're like, what are you doing? He's like, it's nice to just kind of slip away every once in a while. And
yeah.
We're in such a beautiful place. It'd be a shame not to appreciate it. And I'm just like, it did remind me of that. And that's what they were alluding to. They're like, well, Viggo's gone already. That's cool. Yep.
Right.
And I'd forgotten that Tammy talked about that. He would just disappear and then show up with fish and crazy stuff. So
just from what I'm going to try to tie this together. So didn't he used to bring a camera, right? Didn't she say he brought a camera around and he would take pictures and stuff?
Yeah, he's a photographer. Yeah. He's like a really talented photographer, so he'd take pictures of people doing their thing. And
he's like into creating moments, It's like he's a moment creator, You're like,
yeah. I think she told us. Yeah, she told us about how he photographed everyone doing their job, right? Mm-hmm. And then printed that off and signed it and gave it to them as like a gift at the end of filming.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome.
So obviously I'm there for all the Viggo moments, but they were all wonderful. It was so cool seeing like Carl Urban and Miranda Otto and Liv Tyler was there. Howard Shore popped on for a second. It was really cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we do have a cool message from our good friend Maxwell Leaning. Max is a friend of ours from our hometown. Well, it's not really our hometown. I've resented it my entire life, and you don't live in this town technically, but it's Mount Vernon. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And he works at a local bookstore called Paragraphs Bookstore, and he sent us a little message. Okay, he said, guys, just got this in the infrastructure of bookstoreology or whatever. There's some stuff coming down the pike in October. So he reported that the following are getting a reprint this year. I think he said October 6th, and The Histories of Middle Earth. All 12 books in 3 hardback volumes for $225 for the set, $80 for individual books.
Wow.
There's also going to be new editions of the trilogies, box sets, and an illustrated version of the Unfinished Tales. And so Max, he actually sent us, I don't know if I should say this. Max, if this is bad, just let me know and we'll delete it so I don't get you in trouble at Paragraphs. But he sent us like a snapshot of his, I don't even know what it is, like an email they got that came through or something, reporting that, hey, this is going to be available. We're going to have this available for purchase. The conclusion he drew is like, guys, it's probably, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a tie-in for the show, or at least a lead up to the show. So that's really exciting. So if you're a bookworm, if you're into collecting different series and stuff like you are, you love lining your shelves.
I love it.
There's some new books on the way. So that's kind of cool. A little insider's peek at that. Shout
out to him, by the way, too. I'm also wearing my, he gave me this little, Gandalf for President.
Max, I want one too, man.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
I will pay you.
I could not, he's such a cool dude. I showed up there to, because I like to order local, if I can, and support the old local bookshop. So I had a few, I had an item in there, and then there's a few other things I have to look at, like a trivia thing, a couple cool things that he had gotten that were promotional. It was neat. So
Max is one of the finest human beings in the world. If you're close to Mount Vernon or in Ohio somewhere, go into Paragraphs and stop it and see Max. You would not regret that decision. So
right.
Yeah. And then we actually heard, so Isaac is becoming famous.
I know.
Isaac from Minnesota I think he's going to take over the podcast. He's driving us out of a job. Right. But we just wanted to share that we got a really cool message from his dad. It was right after that episode came out. And I actually went to search. I went to see how I could contact Isaac to just let him know, buddy, hey, we're going to be, your message left such a mark on our hearts that we're opening the episode with it. I don't know where you are in the podcast, but jump ahead to the most recent and listen to it. We want you to know how much you mean to us.
Yeah.
And as I was searching for that, I'm like, crap, I don't have his email.
Yeah.
We don't have his email. He sent a Google Voice, and I didn't know how to contact him. So I was really I was like, man, bummer.
Right.
We got an email the next day or something like that, and it was Isaac's dad just saying, hey, you have no idea what this meant to us. We were sitting there around the breakfast table, started playing the podcast, and we heard Isaac's voice. He said, neither Isaac nor myself had expected that. He just said they're just grateful for our content, Said his wife was crying. He was staring at his phone in disbelief. Isaac was bouncing up and down, grinning ear to ear, and their 7-year-old daughter was just hugging everyone. So it was just really cool. And his father closes here. He says, I just want to throw it out there. If you ever want to talk and talk shop and have a conversation with him, it would probably mean as much to him as it would to us. And I can only say it'll definitely mean more to us. And we haven't even talked about this, but I would love to have Isaac on an episode. I don't know when we can make that happen, how we can make that happen, but Isaac, you're going to be receiving a formal invitation to come on and either do a reread with us or do an episode just all on your own, whatever you want to do. We want to get to know you better, and we want to talk to you. And we think people, if you want to anyway, if your parents are cool with it, for people to hear that, because I think people would get a lot out of it.
Yeah, Lane, can I say, so what's neat, and then today we actually have later on we have a Bywater post from a young girl who we will get to, and we have several. We actually have several youngsters who have sent in some stuff since we've kind of played that Isaac.
Dude, this is so exciting because we haven't had this yet. We haven't experienced this yet. And
I love it.
It's like, we talked about it, last episode, but there's something else like that's awakening in my heart. Like that 12, 13-year-old Lane Smith is coming back to life through these kids. And it's just like, it's amazing, man. I'm connecting with my origins and my entry into this fandom in this world. It's very humbling and exciting, and I think it's perfect that we're getting ready to go into The Hobbit, a book I've never read, kind of a more kids book that will, I think, only foster that. I feel great about it.
Yeah, and another thing too, we're going into The Hobbit, but then also, I'm telling you what, next year when the show comes out, I really hope that the show brings in a lot more kids, a lot more teenagers, and then they like the show. Then they ask their parents, hey, where can I get more of this? They turn to the books, and then they want a companion piece, come in, join the book club, and that's what I'm hoping for. So if you hear this, whether it's now or here recently, if you hear it in the future, whenever, send us a message or an email, and we'd love to correspond with you. We'd love to have that type of excitement. I think it makes everyone feel good. I think people responded to his message because it's like, yeah, I kind of remember that. And all of the Bywater post, like the Tolkien stories that we share, like the common thread in most of them is that I was introduced to this by my parents, or I found this at a young age, or this was coming out in the theaters and I was like blown away by it. So like, I just, would say to folks, remember that there's a lot of youngsters out there that need Tolkien in their life, and you could be that person to hand them that book for a birthday or for Christmas. So
that's nuts, man.
Yeah.
Or bring them in and say, hey, check out this TV show.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool, man. All right, we're into the reread, my friend. Lead us, Gandalf. Well, actually, Gandalf's gone. Yeah,
wouldn't that be kind of so? All right, Lane, go ahead.
Woo! No thanks, man. Strider's gone too, and Butterbur, I know where he is.
Right. So let me do something here. This is kind of how. Well, I'll start with a little bit of a summary here, and I always kind of break off and see how far we get on that. So the hobbits are, we find them on a bridge at Brandywine. It's closed by this. They're closed up by this big gate, and they're demanding entrance. And there's a frightened gatekeeper who informs them, right, that they're under orders from the chief at Bag End to let no one enter between sundown and sunrise. Frodo guesses that the chief must be Lotho.
Yeah.
And so that's where I guess we'll kind of start this whole thing. But the second time that I read this, so typically I read it once, and then now right before I was coming into this, I wanted to read it again to be fresh for this episode. I was asking Lane before we started, I went and looked up a map, and it's really interesting to look and see just where they come in to the Shire and all of these interesting little places, and because they kind of split up at one point. Later on, that they'll split up and they'll need to go gather help and get some other folks to help root out these ruffians, which I thought was pretty cool. So, but we start off right there at Brandywine Bridge, and the way is it's barred. It's a spiked gate.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that didn't Gandalf kind of allude to, that might be a possibility, sort of warn them, thinking, which also it sort of ended our conversation last time. We were like, how much did Gandalf know? Why did he withhold? If he did know, why did he withhold information from the hobbits? How hard would that have been? And so I think he kind of warned them, like, home might not be the same as you left it. Like there might be more, there might be gates where before there were none. And so, the hobbits, so they're kind of prepared for this. I mean, the crazy thing about this chapter, you said this a few chapters ago, is that they're going into sort of an unexpected, and we'll talk about later, an unexpected internal struggle that is manifesting itself in a place that is, thought to be, and traditionally a peaceful place and not dangerous and safe. Not dangerous, safe, comma. And they are prepared for that because of their journey they took, because of the change. They also too are changed, right? They're not the same hobbits that left the Shire.
Absolutely, right.
From 1 to 4, they're different. They even their appearance. We read in the chapter is enough to strike fear. Their demeanor is enough to frighten ruffians, grown men who have been keeping the Shire in check. And so there's something like there's something the journey has left its mark. In a really amazing way. And it's almost like this whole thing was so they could come back. That's the irony of this chapter, right? The whole thing seems like they went away to defeat evil so that they could come back and defeat evil where there was none before. That they could redeem everywhere. Even because think about it, dude, like the shock of you go away, you fight this battle, you get victory, or you destroy something, and then it's like in the back of your head. They even talk about this on the slopes of Mount Doom. They talk about especially in the movie. They talk about the strawberries and cream and just like missing home. And the assumption is home is still there, exactly how we left it. And that's what drives you is we've got home. We're doing this to protect our home so that it doesn't become corrupted. It doesn't fall like these other places have, only to be welcomed home with a gate in your face and trees cut down and hobbit holes dug up and things not at all the same as they were before. Like what a crazy reality. And I think, in Tolkien, I think maybe partially when people asked, hey, was this sort of like this in your life? I don't know where I land on, like, did he hide his intentions, or was it really just kind of he didn't intentionally put anything in there from his own personal life, but if there was an applicability, he was fine with it because, well, it also has applicability for you. But I think about like soldiers returning home from war, right? Yeah. And the physical place might be the same. It might also have changed, but what has happened to you changes you in a way that you're unable to, for the most part, I think there's a struggle at least, to relate to that same place the way you could before, to interact with it the way you could before. And so it's almost like sort of a, this chapter, the way the vibes I get from it, even though it's probably not intended this way, is almost like a metaphor for that struggle of someone who went away, did something great, suffered a lot of loss, coming home and being like, what do I do now? Like, what am I supposed to do now? Right.
Yeah, I know. It's so for me, I was thinking kind of the same thing. I thought it's really unexpected.
Did I just derail us? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, because okay. I mean, I'll summarize some more of this for us too, to kind of move us along, but because it is a longer chapter, for sure. But I like what you're saying, because to me, I'll use the word, it's unexpected. Who expects to go off and fight a great enemy or a great evil and come back and to have to fight at home? A place of peace. Like who expects to have to do that?
Right.
But I think that is there may have been seems like there were seeds of this growing right around the time they left, and they all refer to it as just after they left. But this fight might have come anyway, and
that's a great that perspective is nuts to think about. And then if it had, they wouldn't have been ready, and they would have been useless, and they would have been, not enslaved, but sort of like castrated like every other hobbit. You know what I mean? Like unable to go about their normal life. They would have been just like the Cottons and just like the all the Tooks. They would have been subject to this kind of overtake. You know what I mean? And the crazy thing, we were talking about this before. The amazing thing, the reason I love this chapter is because it brings in so much realism, right? And we were talking about how Lord of the Rings almost seems to transcend all other fantasy stories is when it does stuff like this, where, like you said, it's unexpected. Most other fantasy stories you read, you're like, well, yeah, it's the happy ending. There's a happy ending. And it's kind of like that eventually, but not without a slap of a very realistic situation in your face, like having to come home and win home back. It's not expected. It's not how it's supposed to go. That's not the traditional story arc. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have a rising action, a climax, a falling action, and then another one, right? I mean, that you're supposed to just denouement into resolution. And what we're getting is sort of like a one final fight, one last breath to. I love it. I think like those moments where real life comes through a fantasy story makes it something just better than any other story you've read. It makes it relatable. It makes you feel like these are. I think that's why these feel like real characters, is because of partially because of this this chapter and moments that happen throughout the story like this chapter where you go, man, this could almost really happen. This almost could have been a prehistory. You know what I mean? Like something that happened in a world long forgotten. Because this kind of stuff happens all the time. And so I know we were talking about people probably either love this or hate this chapter. And I think maybe the first time I read it, I think I was a little more thrown off as a kid. I read this now as an adult and I'm like, thank God that some stories don't just wind up, everything's fine and the day is saved and go home to your nice warm bed and know you did a good job.
Right.
You don't have a bed to go home to.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You got to win that bed back. Yeah.
I actually like this. I don't know. I didn't want to do too much digging myself into, because I have heard that this is not one of those chapters that people do criticize, I guess, a little bit. But I honestly just wanted to go into it and say, what did I think about it? And my thought is that I had this thought a couple chapters back. It's like it's coming full circle. Yeah. What one might say that symbolism would represent a ring. You know. Right. This is kind of,
dude.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's come full circle. So we're back here and we have to kind of free up our homeland. And so anyway, let's so the start of this here. Sorry. No, you're fine. Really, what this comes down to, they end up. It's Sam who's looking for a notice on the gate. They keep asking, "Can't you see the notice? Right? No admittance after dark." Or between sundown and sunrise.
That makes me think of like Bilbo's notice at his gate.
Right. Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Sam says, of course we can't read the notice in the dark, right? And if hobbits of the Shire are to be kept out in the wet of night like this, I'll tear down your notice when I find it. So he's not having any of that. And this individual, there's a lot of new hobbits we're going to talk about here. So Hayward is who we're talking to here at the gate. Mary Brandybuck, this is his spot, right? This is they should know him, and they definitely do.
Yep.
The reoccurring theme here with these hobbits is they all kind of thought they went off, and I don't know. Some of them are sort of like, we thought you'd be back, or what took you so long, or like in Bree, it was sort of they weren't known, so it was like they may have died, and they were ever going to come back. Yeah. But in the Shire, it's not entirely that way. So
that's a great point. Yeah.
Some of them though did think that they would be dead. Lost in the old forest, right? By all accounts, I'm pleased to see that you're alive after all. And really, who I'm referring to is Rosie later on. So right, Rose Cotton. So, who had faith that Sam would return?
Yeah.
They are. So we start to hear about what's going on up at Bag End, and that the chief, who Frodo, as I said in the summary there,
suspects
is Lotho, right?
Yeah.
And kind of says that at least he's dropped the Baggins part, and
not soiling the name, right? Yeah,
right. Not soiling. It's a family matter he's going to have to look into and take care of. Because this is not good. So the gist of this, and I guess to kind of give us a framework for the start of this, is that the hobbits learn there are a lot of rules. There are very strict restrictions on There are a lot of restrictions. Yeah, if I can talk. On what you can, like on food, on making a fire, on admitting people after dark, on letting people in houses. It's radical. So at first they're denied entry, then they're denied food, even if they're allowed in, and then like they're like, look, we got our own food, just give us a place to kind of stay, you know?
Can't have fires. Like there's a big thing about wasting a fire. Okay, it's not nearly as extreme, but it has. I'm sure a lot of people, if they're reading along with this, may have read this and thought, man, this has felt like the last couple months. Not as extreme, right? But for some people, I mean, if you're not able to work, like that's a burden, and maybe you're not able to eat the same way you could, and like you're having to figure things out. But I was reading this, I'm like, my gosh, the timing of this was kind of uncanny, because I think for the most part we're kind of sort of like, at least, I don't know, halfway coming out of this. But that's how it's felt. It's felt like no fun, no one, don't get too close, don't go where you're not supposed to. A lot of rules and a lot of things to remember. Obviously to keep people safe, not to try to suppress an entire country. But that's what's going on in the Shire, is the suppression of kind of freedoms that they had enjoyed before. Yeah,
a lot of it, and it's got the Hobbit sort of.
I mean, they're
Right?
Yeah, right. And that's another reason they need these 4, right? I just thought it was so interesting how Merry's opening line, just the way we shall wake him up in a way, talking about the Chief's big man, we shall wake him up in a way that will surprise him. Just the way that they're talking there, it's not what the hobbits have been hearing back in the Shire. It's not the same kind of attitude of, hey, this is not going to stand. We're not going to just be pushed around. We're going to change what's happening here. So they're coming in with these inspiring words, no fear. Sam talking about ripping the gate down or whatever. It's just they're ready to go. They're badasses now. They have become badasses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, essentially, so they just Merry says to Pippin, "Come on, two's enough," and they go over they're climbing over. They don't care.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a shock too. So their demeanor, their tone of voice, the fact that clearly they haven't been in the Shire. They don't know what's going on. It's like, hey lads, I mean, this is what's up. Like, there are rules. Like, don't break them. You're going to be locked up and stuff. And that is what they're afraid of. Is that the mayor's been locked up. I mean, Lothelia. There's been some major hobbits that are locked up and been Fatty Bulger,
stocks and the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's also it's just interesting because they're the hobbits who have been here are warning them and they're telling them to tread lightly, and they're like, guys, we've been to Mordor, like Black Gates, Pelennor Fields, Mount Doom. Right. That's it's so interesting, just their frame of reference. For the 4, it's like this at its worst, it's not going to be worse than that. It can't be. It's shocking because we're at home, but it's not going to be more challenging and more frightening than that. So yeah. At
one point we'll get to it, but Sam does say that he does almost feel as if this is worse than Mordor, which is kind of crazy because this is their home, and it hurts more because it's right there, and it hurts. No, but you're right. I mean, it's like they've seen far worse, but yet to see this here, this is what
more
they
of an
went
internal.
And thought. They thought they were. Sam, when he has his vision, right, he believes that basically by completing the quest, he's stopping that future from happening.
Yes.
And to find out that, wow, it's actually, here we are. So they run across Bill Ferny. Bill Ferny ends up being the fella. They're one of the Chief's big men that comes out. And when he sees Merry and Pippin, and you got to remind yourself, right, they're a little bigger than most hobbits.
Yeah, they are now.
Right? They're definitely a little bigger. And they're seasoned and everything. So he sees them and he just chucks the key at him. They demand the key and he just chucks it at him and just takes off. And as he's taking off, did you notice that old Bill the Pony gets a little kick in there?
Yeah, he does.
On him, right?
Yep.
So
it's just interesting too, thinking about the last time they saw this guy. They're kind of frightened by him, right? And again, it's just another sign that like they're changed hobbits. They're not messing around. No worries. Right.
Exactly. So now that they've dealt with that and they're inside here and gotten Frodo and Sam in, Hobb again kind of says that he's sorry, Mr. Merry, but it isn't allowed. We're not, what isn't allowed? He's like taking folks in offhand like and eating extra food and all that, said Hobb.
Yeah. The hobbity stuff. Not allowed. Yeah.
So they're sort of like, has it been a bad year? What's going on here? Is there like, what's up with the harvest? Was it not good enough? And
where's the pipeweed?
Yeah. Right. It was a good year, and it's more though that it's turned that their crops and things have been turned over to these ruffians who are delegating it out and who are also shipping it elsewhere and had been for a bit. Yeah. So they're not getting, they're not getting to enjoy any of their own work, crops, what have you. It's everything's been kind of uprooted here. So but they're tired. The hobbits are definitely tired, so they kind of decide to, this is tiresome for me tonight. We've got food in our bags. Just give us a room to lie down in. It'll be better than many places I've seen. Which right there, that line right there, it'll be better than many places I've seen tells you a lot, right? That they've slept in. Doesn't really matter. Just give me a floor. Give me.
Yeah, right.
Right. So Frodo then orders the gate to be locked again. There was some sense at any rate of keeping a guard while ruffians were still out and about. So the 4 companions went into the Hobbit guardhouse and made themselves as comfortable as they could. And they kind of, parse out the food and, kind of sit there by the, let's see, here we go. Pippin broke rule 4 by putting most of the next day's allowance of wood on the fire.
Yep, can't do that, man.
So they're enjoying their comforts. I mean, that's the other thing too. They come back, right, and they're sort of like, it's almost like when you, I don't know, it's different because they're home, but you know that vibe where you go on vacation and people are sort of like telling you, you can't have this full experience. You're like, no, I'm gonna have the full experience. I deserve to be, I've been working my butt off for this. I want it, and we're gonna enjoy it. So they also have that
totally
vibe. But they're deeply concerned because I think one of the most concerning things here too is, as you said, the pipeweed. That's shocking.
Yeah.
That's been,
just Yeah, and to hear all these rules and regulations and them pertaining to things that the hobbits love, right? Like, like rationing out food and no pipeweeds available. The beer is there's no beer around, so like even taking away their right to drink.
Yeah.
It's everything that the hobbits love is being stripped from them and seized. And so that affects the soul of the hobbit, right? The heart and soul of their culture is about, good food, good drink, good smoke, good conversation. That's what it's all about. A hard day's work, putting your feet up and knowing you did your part to keep this place worthwhile, a good corner of Middle Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it's really getting at the core of what we enjoy in the Shire. So interesting thing here that we kind of learn that Hob Hayward says that there are essentially you learn that there are sneaks, these people who will run off and tell the boss or the chief what's going on here. So he is giving up a little bit more information maybe than normally would be allowed, and they're kind of telling him that he's going to bring trouble on himself. He said he wouldn't hear not if some of you weren't, sneaks, as you say. So, and it's the truth, right? So that's the problem, is that someone's going to run back, and it's out of fear. It's out of we've seen other people. You get little references from Tom Cotton and Fatty and others that there's been little attempts at maybe resisting here and there, but there's not really been a way to kind of completely get everyone fired up at the same time and rally everyone. They're all waiting for that. So yeah. All right. So the new chief evidently had means of getting news. It was a good 40 miles from the bridge to Bag End. And so that's where I pulled up a map and looked at sort of how long this was going to take. And but there's definitely messengers, and they're passing this back to the chief. So Frodo and his friends would soon discover that word has gotten back, which basically means that ruffians are on their way, right?
Yeah.
Isn't
it funny too? You're talking about the map, right? And that's 40 miles. It's so funny. It just makes me think of on the way, going on a quest. That part of the trip just flies by, right? Mm-hmm. I think about when we went to Texas. We were to Kentucky before you knew it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But on the way home, it always seems like those last few miles take forever. And you see that 40 miles, I'm like, 40 miles?
Right.
That's some work yet. I mean, they've obviously, it's not a big deal for them, but even they have to be thinking we're not home yet. Mary is technically, but we still got a ways to go and some tricky stuff to maneuver in between here and the hill. Yeah.
Yeah, because we've got to free up the Shire, and to do that, we're going to have to get to Hobbiton, which is what they decide to do. So they make towards they want to get right to Hobbiton to settle this, but they are going to have to go. So they do take off, right? And as evening fell, they were drawing near Frog Morton, a village near that was right on the road, about 22 miles from the bridge. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a trek. That's a bit, right?
Yep.
But what's interesting too, and we're going to find out here in a second, is that they can cover a lot more ground now than they used to be able to at a quicker pace and everything.
True.
They're used to this. Yep. This is nothing. Yep. This is nothing.
It's very true. Yeah.
So there, though, we get to an interesting place, the floating log.
Yeah.
Which
this is your go-to.
I am so intrigued and interested by this place, and I'm so disappointed that we didn't get a chance to just stop in and sit down and enjoy ourselves here.
Yeah.
I'm really actually, who Who comes up with a name?
Do we need a floating log T-shirt for you?
I would love a floating log T-shirt. I would literally the floating log inn. I'm telling you right now. We did a whole YouTube video on this because I was I sincerely was like, okay, you can't give me a name like that. You know how you like if you're picking out an adult beverage or you're picking out like a tavern or a place to go or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
you go for the name.
You go for the name. It's just like that's a cool name. It's a great logo. Like the Golden Perch is awesome. The Green Dragon's an awesome name.
Yep.
All of that's great. And then when you come across the floating log, you're like, wow. That's a different level, you know?
Yeah. There better be plungers in the floating log.
Right. Yeah, right.
or maybe there aren't enough. I don't know. Like that's what comes to my mind when I think floating log.
That just seems So anyways, there they meant to stay the night at the floating log at Frog Morton. They heard that they knew that it was a good inn. But as they came to the end of the village, they met a barrier with a large board saying "No road." Behind it stood a large band of sheriffs with staves in their hands and feathers in their caps. And this is where we get this, get these sheriffs showing up, and they're arresting Frodo. Let me say that again. Frodo's under arrest.
Yeah. All
right. He may live, but he's under arrest, my friends. This is not good. So
free Frodo.
Yeah, free. Man, he says you're arrested for gate breaking. And tearing up the rules. Now, seriously? Now, I think that was Sam, actually. If we're getting technical, I think Sam was the one who tore it up, all right? But I guess he's arresting a lot of them, maybe. And assaulting gatekeepers. Did he do that? Now, come on now. I don't know if this is all right.
They threw the keys at him and ran. I mean, is that an assault?
Yeah, I don't know that was an assault. Not sure who's passing along the information here. Trespassing and sleeping in Shire buildings without leave. And what else here? And bribing guards with food. This is extreme. This is next level.
This is like 4 or 5 counts of something, isn't it? I mean, this is crazy.
It's nuts. I mean, like you would look at the scene and would go, and sometimes in our own society and in history, you've looked at things and you've gone like, wait,
what is that?
That was a rule. That was a law. Seriously.
Yeah. No, definitely. I love that his reaction is like Frodo. He sees all this before he's read his charges. He sees this and he says, "What's all this?" And he like feels like inclined to laugh.
Right.
That's how they think they're making a big show of force here, and Frodo's like, "What? Come on, I'm Frodo Baggins. Like this is my crew. All right." Frodo Swaggins, you might know me as. We've been on a road, all right? We've been on the road. Don't act like you've been on that road with us.
That's right. Where you been?
Where you been?
Well, I mean, songs are still being sung. I think it's Frodo, right? The Nine-Fingered, right? Still being sung out there. Like, don't you know? So, oh wow! But
oh man,
his exchange here. So he's like, "Well, is that it? Is that the full list of charges?" Because let's add a few more on there, right?
Yeah, man, they're so bold. They're so bold.
Calling the chief names, wishing to punch his pimply face.
Yep.
Right. Thinking that you sheriffs look like a lot of tomfools. It's great. So he does actually say that he is sort of like, well, look, I'm headed to Bag End. I'm headed to Hobbiton. So you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to come along if you want. Essentially, if you can keep up. And the sheriff's just sort of like, well, just remember that I arrested you. And he was like, I'll never forget it, but I may forgive you.
Yeah, right? Man, dude.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good.
Yep. So. Yeah. Oh, now this is interesting. So Sam is looking at these sheriffs and he finds Robin Smallborough. Yeah. Right. And he wanted a word with him. So this is a young hobbit that he knew before he left, and basically kind of we learn he wanted to become a sheriff long before this. So it wasn't like this was always his intent. And some of these guys, I think, were just pulled in on this and don't even want to be sheriffs. But Robin did, and he's trying to explain to Sam sort of, what happened here. And Sam knows that he ought to know better than this, and is trying to get
from Hobbiton. You should know better than messing with Mr. Frodo. Yeah,
right. So, they're asking about the inn. Why is it closed? Right, all beer has been put on hold. It's been closed up. But now I reckon it's his men that are still getting some of this stuff. Right, the some of the maybe the pipe weed and maybe some of the beer and stuff. It does where's where's it going? What are we doing with it? Is it going to spoil? Sam says to him, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself for having anything to do with such nonsense.
Yeah.
You used to be like the inside of this inn better than the outside of it. Or I'm sorry, you used to like the inside of the inn better than the outside of it. You were always popping in and out, on duty or off. So, yeah, what's up? Why would you go along with this? Like you're going along with something that goes so counter to you. Now, isn't that something that I think that happens to people? I think it's
just caught up in the I
think it's happened to me once or twice in life where I agreed with something and I thought, I don't know why I went with that. These are moments of growth, and this is again Sam, who is a little further along in the progression or journey, is encouraging young Robin here to, think back on those times. Think about this logically. You don't support this,
right? And also kind of changing his mentality too. Like this is what's going to happen. We're coming in here to stir the pot and bring the Shire back to what it was. We're raising the Shire up. So I also wonder if it's a little bit of a gauge to see exactly where Robin still is, right? I do also think it's interesting, like the fact that the chief doesn't hold with beer. He took it away, right? And that's how it all started. So you look at times like where I think about like prohibition and stuff.
Yeah.
Think about times where you try to tell people they can't have beer, they can't have wine, they can't have liquor. That's usually a sign of bad things to come. It's like that's one of our. I don't know why it is, but if you do, drink adult beverages, right? As an adult, that's one of those things that's like it's a treat. As an adult, it's something that we can do. It's sort of for some people anyway. I guess even as cultures, it marks adulthood, right? You're old enough, you can have a beer. You can enjoy that with your father, your mother, your brother, your sister. It's the way we come together. And when you take that away from individuals and groups, it's like, well, hold on a second. What? You're telling me I can't? No, you're not letting us. Like that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And the fact that that was first, and also that would cut off a huge reason for them to go to inns and go to pubs, and then they could justify, well, there's no beer, we're not standing it, and well, then you're not going to need to go to inns and taverns, so we're going to shut those down too, okay? And it's cutting off their sense of community as well, and that's also kind of what we're seeing is they're all sort of splintered out. Like you might have one or two who think we got to stop this stuff, we got to get this mischief out of the Shire, but they don't know who to go and talk to, or it's a couple that are making noise and they're snuffed out real quick, and so they're all sort of spread out because they're not meeting in these taverns, they're not talking at the Green Dragon, they're not meeting at the Floating Log saying, hey, how can we, and you think about Revolution.
That's why they shut them down, man. That's
why they shut them down. Think about Revolution too, like there's this pub in Massachusetts in Boston where supposedly the Revolution was thought up, and it's actually called the Green Dragon. I've been there with Jimmy Nichols. Wow. We went there, and I'd read about how this place was, and I don't know if it's still the original. It's a really old place, so it might be. But we went there, and we had hung out there, had some drinks, and ate at the Green Dragon in Boston. And it's so great ideas are formed in pubs. Whether even if it's your favorite restaurant or whatever, a meeting place where you're enjoying good food. You can meet there with anybody, and you're not in your own house where you got to worry about like cleaning stuff up or taking care of your family in the same kind of way. It's a public place where it's just different. It's a different atmosphere. So they're cutting that off from the hobbits, and that's a huge part of especially in their culture. That's where news is spread. That's where ideas are had, and that's where plans are hatched. And so, none of that.
Right. I'm really glad you brought that up. That's really interesting because you think about one of my predictions. I was going to ask you this later, but I think I'll ask you now. So I almost wondered if Frodo and these guys, like, if given more time, if things get worse and worse. And seems like you do have something maybe going on over in Tuklin, right? And with the Tooks.
Oh yeah.
Seems like maybe they are starting to get a little, like
I love that was sort of the, like, Pippin almost knew that. I think I can't remember totally, but it's almost like he had a sense like, the Tooks are no problem. We got them. They're coming. I just got to go rouse them. And it's just like I think we were talking about this. It's just their nature too, right? Like the Tooks are more adventurous. They're, we talk when Bilbo and Frodo talk about that Tookish side of them awakening. And that's what caused them to long for an adventure,
That's right. Yep.
And you think about old Took and just how he was. Bullroarer Took was an adventurous, big, larger than life hobbit, and so they are bold. And they're just like, it's almost. I love that Pippin knows. I just got to go give them hey, we're starting this, and I got at least 100 with me. Don't worry about it, boys.
Right.
We're gonna be okay. Yeah. It's not all this like. And I don't know why that is necessarily. Maybe they're something that didn't happen, right? Was their burrows weren't as easily dug up because of how deep they were, right? In the Great Smeals. So
that's right. They could resist a little bit easier.
They could resist a little bit more, and so it's their nature, but it's also how they're set up, and maybe the way they relate to each other as well. But they're not nearly as splintered or disconnected. They're a strong force. So yeah. Anyway.
Yep. Pretty awesome. Now, a reoccurring theme in all of this, and this is where Sam kind of highlights it for us. In talking to young Robin, says like, "Hey, why don't you give up sheriffing? Just stop doing it." And he basically says, "I'm not allowed. I would." And Sam's like, "Gosh, if I hear that one more time, like I'm gonna get angry." And
I love that. I love it.
And really, Robin's just like, he's like, I can't say I'd be sorry to see that. That's kind of what we need. It's kind of what we want, right?
Someone need to get angry. Yes.
Right. So this is where he asked about, who sent word to Frog Morton, and we kind of talked about it just a little bit ago. But this is where you get these other places, and it's nice to go look at a map and to see that. Let me see where it was that was. From Whitburrows, they had a runner to Frog Morton.
Yeah.
That was.
Did you? I'm sorry. Did you read the one line where he says? I think you just did, but I wanted to just ask you what you thought. Like when Robin says, "If we all got angry together, something might be done." Did you read that?
Yeah. No, that's the next line. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay, I thought that was really fitting. I was like, I wonder if this is a little look into Tolkien's like. Okay, so again, forgive me for doing this. I wonder about the man, but
yeah,
like, was this a view into his stance on politics, or his view of how government should run, right, or how societies should respond? Like, if a bunch of people get angry together, something might be done, and how it's not necessarily. Yeah. I think there's a negative connotation to getting angry, but it's what you do with that anger, right?
Yeah,
He's not saying, get angry and go crazy, but focusing that anger into something productive, that something can get done. I just thought that was a really poignant line. Like, I could see that on a shirt or a monument or something. If we all got angry together, something might be done.
Yeah.
It just 100%. It kind of seems like a way ahead of its time too, I think, almost. I don't know.
Well, and also though, I think he's a smart guy. He's a student of history. I mean, that's the idea,
True.
Is that
revolution,
war and stuff. Eventually you get sort of, in teaching my high schoolers, we talk about the different, like the class system, and during the French Revolution and stuff, and sort of how disproportional things were and why that whole thing kind of took off. So I that's a good line. That's really good, and it's Robin kind of saying that is the vibe, and that's sort of why there is they just need a spark. Yep. They're all gathered, ready just to this is the spark they need to kind of get fired up here, and they definitely will. So we also learned though that they did take Will Whitfoot, the mayor. They took him first, and they've taken a lot more. So he's talking about like what happens to these folks who do disobey the rules, and that they get put in the lock holes, right?
Yeah.
So the mayor at one point, so you can tell like they didn't just give up. I mean, like it wasn't like there was a little bit of resistance, but it was put down pretty hard, and that put a peaceful hobbits. It put them kind of on guard at bay, cowed them a little bit, and then now that this sort of I don't know, when you see your leader tossed into the lock hole, it's got to be that's tough.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Things
Party's
are
over,
changing,
kind of a thing. Yeah.
And also, as you say, it's a spread out, like, you know, that people rely on the post and runners, and not everyone's kind of talking to everyone, and it's sort of now there's a ton of
Pubs are
sheriffs.
shut down. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe it starts off as sort of like, what were the sheriffs promised? It's a position of
Oh yeah,
a little bit of power. Maybe that's a thing that they were interested in. You know what I'm saying? But then it turned into, wow, this was used against us, you know, as in the rings being given out, right? It's like, oh, look, it's got this awesome.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they're like ring wraiths, man. They're like ring wraiths.
Yeah, and then they're realizing, like, oh wow,
holy crap, that's genius.
We're destroying our own people here. We're destroying our own land.
Wow,
and
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
How do we get out of this? You know, and we're not allowed, right? Is Robin's thing. They're all thinking about it, and they want to. And you'll see here quickly what happens to a few of the sheriffs. So they do stay at the, I think it's the sheriff. It's the Frogmorton Sheriff Guardhouse. Is that what it was? I think it's what it was. Mm-hmm. So they stay there, and again, it's nothing fancy. They talk about the quick post service. And I was on that for a second there. Basically, that's just the secret message services, how they're communicating back and forth. So there's that. But, the sheriff house. Excuse me. It's the sheriff house at Frogmorton. That's where they're going to kind of stay.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's not any better than that bridge house they were at.
No, exactly.
It's a rough place.
And for reference, so we're about 18 miles to Bywater. And they're going to set off at 10 o'clock in the morning. By the way, they're picking their own time, and they're deciding when and where they're going, which is awesome.
Trailing the sheriffs are trailing behind.
Yeah, like I saw the reference earlier, right? Is that that makes sense, right, Lane? I mean, that's like they've grown so much, and they're able to outpace them, no problem.
They're clearly in charge. Yeah.
They're in shape.
I did think it was I did think it was interesting, so that we get a description of the Frogmorton sheriff house a little bit. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is what you were just talking about. Their time they leave. They would have started earlier. Only the delay so plainly annoyed the sheriff leader, so that like you said, they're having fun with that. I thought this was interesting. The west wind had shifted northward and was now turning colder, but the rain was gone. Huh. I believe that was the same shift in the wind before, after Pelennor and before the Black Gate, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Because there was that. Remember the front was coming from Mordor from the east, and then the wind changed. Remember how the wind changed?
Yes.
And it came from the west, and it was this kind of ethereal sign that, like, wow, okay, the tide is turning. This battle is. And then everything else happened afterwards, where they defeated the forces of Mordor. And then as they were going to because Tolkien was bringing up the wind as, like, fortuitous almost, God,
this is a turning point. It's sort of like
and it just almost
has the weather. Yeah,
a symbol. It's a symbol, right? Symbolism. Yeah. And so, but I believe that when they were going to the Black Gate, it was a northerly wind, and it was just like, well, what does this mean? It almost kind of left it up for anything's going to happen. We don't really know how this is going to go yet. And so I thought it was interesting that before their own little, because they're getting ready for what is the final battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this war, this is actually, it marks the end of this war.
Yep.
In Middle Earth, and the same kind of conditions. I thought that was really interesting as they're attempting to, like, clean an area out from this filth that's come in.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's sort of like before we've seen what that wind change means. And so is it going to mean the same thing?
Same thing again. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. What's it telling us here? Yeah. So it's a subtle that's a layer that, if you notice, that's a great catch. I did not, I love when an author does that, though. When they use
it's
weather,
great, man. Yeah.
Or lights, stars, sun, moon, whatever, just to kind of tell us something, communicate something to us. So, Now here's something interesting. These sheriffs, along the way, are mocked by a by a sturdy old gaffer, right, who's clipping his hedge, and kind of saying like, who's arresting who or who's leading who here, what's going on, and they get kind of mad. A couple of them get bent out of shape, and they start to approach him, and Mary says, no, we're not having any of that. That's not how we behave. We're like that. That guy's allowed to say what he wants. You don't need to go over there and you see like it's really kind of that I don't know, like that to me it's a striking part, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Like what were you going to do? I mean, that the mentality has shifted so much to where you can't even talk back to these people, or you can't even poke fun or whatever, and that's cause to be arrested. That's pretty extreme.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And it shows you how much abuse of power is going on within the sheriffs. And again, some of it's fear, some of it's whatever. It's sort of like there's that peer pressure of like, well, if we don't go do this, what are the other sheriffs going to say? What are they going to say back to the big boss, to the chief and the big men, and so on. So it's tough all around, but still it is interesting to note there that Mary kind of says, we're not going to have any of that. And he orders them to come back. So they don't bother him.
It is funny because they're definitely being dictated by fear, and they're also the sheriffs. They're being dictated. What they do is out of fear of being treated harshly, right? But they're in turn obviously spreading that fear to other hobbits. But these four, right? Our four hobbits are able to show how afraid they really are. Like they'll just. They, like you said, they use their power of force. They use the experience that they've gained, and these sheriffs just back right down. They're not tough. They're not like you said. Half of them probably don't even want to be doing this. They don't want to be sheriffs. They might have been forced into it, and they're showing how scared they are. Like they're afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice lesson too to think like how much stuff do we do out of fear. How many things that maybe aren't even so nice do we do out of fear? It's just, it's something to think about and like definitely evaluating yourself as well.
Yeah. Habits, routines that we get into, all sorts of things. Like why do I do this? Accepted. Yeah. Why do we accept this as norm? Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great. It's good. So they decide eventually once the sheriffs join back up there, they realized that they had gotten to 3 farthing stone. And the sheriffs basically then just said, we're going to give up on trying to keep up with you guys. And they say, all right, fellas, we'll see you later. Goodbye, Cock Robin. I'll wait for you out at the Green Dragon if you haven't forgotten where it is. So they take off. Yeah, burn.
Getting burned by the dragon, baby.
Right. So here we go. Now, this is where... this next part, this was Sam and Frodo's own country, and they found out now that they cared more about it than any other place in the world. So now we're entering into their sort of home. As we're past Frogmorton, we're right up near Bywater, going up to Hobbit.
The hill. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. And this is where Sam is wondering, they're so upset by sort of what they see. Like that tall chimney of brick in the distance is pouring out black smoke into the evening. Things are just that's so not what they are used to, and it's in such contrast to the green and the bright colors of the Shire that it just upsets Sam to the point where he says, "I'm going right on ahead. I'm going right up there. I want to find my gaffer."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's definitely concerned. We ought to find out first what we're in for, Sam, said Mary. I guess that the chief will have a gang of ruffians handy, and we better find someone who will tell us how things are around here.
Yeah.
Right? So they're right in the village of Bywater. All the houses and the holes were shut. No one greeted them. Yep. So things get a little more eerie as they move along. It's almost as if, like, the closer you get to where the chief is located, that things maybe are more strict, and there's more goings and comings of
under closer watch.
Of ruffians and things, right?
Yeah, totally.
So When they reached the Green Dragon, the last house on the Hobbiton side, now lifeless with broken windows, they were disturbed to see half a dozen large, ill-favored men lounging against the inn wall, and they were squint-eyed and sallow-faced. There we go. And so this is where we realize that these are men like Bill Ferny, all right, and that, like many that Mary had seen at Isengard.
Yeah.
So now we have a connection to Isengard.
Yep.
And Mary is able to make that for us. So
and that fear, and that fear of Gandalf's is starting to, this is a little breadcrumb for that. Like, Saruman is a snake who,
right,
might not have his fangs. What was it? Might not have his poison, but still has his fangs. One of those two, or vice versa, or the opposite, or whatever it is. But yeah, so now we're starting to think, okay, well, this is not looking good. This is pretty much like they've transposed what was going on in Isengard into the Shire. Like, this is the start of it. This is how Isengard was, like just the trees were cut down and holes were dug and fires were lit, and we're kind of seeing a similar process going on here. And so that connection to, that these are men like they saw there as well. Yeah.
Right. And this is the first mention, so where we get this mention of Sharky, this individual known as Sharky, right? So what happens, I again, I'm still blown away by, they walk up to these ruffians and they're an evil looking crew, right? Yeah. That's exactly how they're described. They're questioning them, like, what's going on? What do you think you're doing here? And the ruffians are, I think, this is what I was going to say this earlier, but I'll say it now. So Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin are so different than the rest of the hobbits that I think there's an initial shock when you meet that, you know what I'm saying? And there's like some stark sort of like, wow, that is not, it's striking. And so that's another piece to that. Although they're changed, it's sort of like, if there were more people like them, do they, it's just like they're so different. That maybe it catches these ruffians off guard a little bit. And Frodo informs them, though, that he's going up to see Mr. Lotho. That's where he's headed. And basically they start to talk about that this country, that Sharky's in charge, essentially, and that Sharky's going, let's see here. So this country wants waking up and setting to rights, said the ruffian, and Sharky's going to do it and make it hard if you drive him to it. You need a bigger boss, and you'll get one before the year is out. If there's any more trouble, then you'll learn a thing or two, you little rat folk. And this is where, it doesn't phase Frodo, though. Don't worry.
No.
It doesn't phase him. He just tells him simply, I'm on my way to see Mr. Lotho, right? We're going to settle this.
Yep.
And he says Lotho knows, right? That he knows all right. Don't you worry. He'll do what Sharky says. Because if a boss gives trouble, we can change him. See? And if little folk try to push in where they're not wanted, we can put them out of mischief. See?
Man.
Yes, I see, said Frodo. For one thing, I see that you're behind the times. And news here, that it hasn't reached, right? They have not heard about the king in Gondor.
Gondor, yeah.
Let's go, right?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, man.
So, and that, by the way, is really interesting that this is brought up several times, brought up in Bree and brought up here, that like, in case you guys didn't know, there's a new sheriff in town, right? Yep. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, a new king. Like, come on. So anyways,
that's awesome, dude.
They're unbelieving though. No one's really, he's they're not really buying this, but, they're talking. Let's see. The men stared at him and smiled. A beggar in the wilderness, he mocked. Oh, wait a second. Let me back up here. Oh, so and Isengard has been destroyed, and your precious master. Mm-hmm. That's right, is the beggar in the wilderness, and because there's that connection back to Isengard, and that's interesting. So they did pass him, and I had to think about this a little bit, right? So, and what we learned from, we're gonna get this is a reread from Sharky later on, is that he decides, I'm going to shoot on ahead here, and I'm going to make this homecoming pretty terrible, pretty pitiful. It's also like so sad that this is your last, this is all he can do. This is what you can do.
Yeah,
this is the extent of your powers. You can come back here and torment a few hobbits. I mean, that's just how low Saruman has gotten.
Yeah, that conversation we get with him in the end between he and Frodo is, it's unbelievable. I mean, like just the things that he says, and that you come to that conclusion that this really is all he wanted to do. Like, he wanted to spoil it for these hobbits who he felt spoiled it all for him. Spite. He resorted to spite, and it's just crazy, dude. Well, like, and to think like that he was once, for a long time, the head of the Order, right? That he was more powerful even than Gandalf. Like, how crazy! And seeing this, and that he ends up doing the exact opposite of what he was sent to Middle Earth to do.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I don't want to miss this line here too. This is pretty neat. So once they really get at it, Pippin's kind of getting after him. They're going back and forth with this ruffian. They inform the ruffian that he's a messenger of the king, and you are speaking to the king's friend and one of the most renowned in all of the land of the West. You are a ruffian and a fool. Down on your knees in the road and ask pardon, or I will set this troll's bane in you.
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, come on. Some of this stuff made me. I know it's kind of a rough, intense chapter, but they almost have sort of a At times, it seems like it gets really serious, but then they're almost a little bit nonchalant, sort of like
it's never
not a care in the world. Like, I'm just going to pull this sword out here and it's over.
It might get serious, but it's never more than they can handle. It's kind of the vibe, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, tensions are rising, but it's not beyond us.
It's totally within their control. This is what experience will get. They've gained this, and
even just they're almost like every response is so witty and so poetic too. I think about Pippin just showed his they've all been, and their responses have been hilarious. Like, they've taken what has been said to them and twisting it. Like, I think back, this is a couple pages ago, but I missed it. But it's just, it's amazing how even the way they're talking is changing. Like, their I don't know, their wit has even been sharpened, right? Like, when they leave and they're breaking arrest, you're breaking arrest. That's what you're doing, said the leader, ruefully, and I can't be answerable. And Pippin says, we shall break a good many things yet,
right,
and not ask you to answer. Good luck to you. Like, they're just like, oh, by the way, not only are we going to embarrass you all in this entire thing and claim back the Shire, we're going to make you sound like morons too. And I love that. I think about Bilbo, like how clever Bilbo was with his speech and like the riddles and just being witty, and like I think about like his speech, his birthday speech way back at the beginning of this book, and how he would have one-liners where hobbits were going,
huh? Yeah.
What? That's good. I don't even know how good it is yet, but that was good, right? And they're expressing that same kind of skill. It's just really cool to see.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's an energy too. So it's one of those things again, as this has come full circle.
Yeah,
there is still is like it's, I don't know. I think it's interesting that we've captured in a different way the fellowship in this chapter. You know what I mean? Like, we've captured some of that same spirit and that same wittiness and cleverness between. Just like
very true.
That banter back and forth between hobbits is back, and it's there and
back in the Shire, man. Yep.
They seem so at home. Right? They're so at home. And that's awesome. So we, to wrap that part up, they basically pull out their swords and they back up Pippin a little bit there with more swords, and Ruffian runs off. So Frodo then kind of explains to them, he's wondering if they've come too late or if they've come in time to save Lotho, old Pimple, right? I mean. And they're sort of blown away. Merry and Pippin are like, wait, what? I mean, he's the bad guy behind all of this. And no, it doesn't seem so. It seems like there's an influence here from Isengard, and that Lotho maybe was at the start of this, like it's a power grab. Yeah, but now is turned into a puppet, and definitely doesn't want to see this happen to good Shire folk. So yeah, Lotho never meant things to come to this pass. He has been a wicked fool, but he's caught now. So he's basically hoping that we're able to rescue him. And Pippin is blown away by that. Like, of all the Instar journey, that's the very last I should have thought of, right? Is have to fight half orcs and ruffians in the Shire itself to rescue Lotho Pimple.
And I think that did I highlight that? Because I thought to myself that he just perfectly writes a summary for this chapter. And really this whole story is like to think of all the things they went through only to end up here having to cleanse it. I also think like it's, again, fitting that Frodo's the one who sees what's really going on. That even though Merry and Pippin are both changed and elevated, and their speech is even more clever there than they were before, if that's possible. They're larger physically from the Ent draft. They've been through battles. They're no longer afraid of things. They're big, tough, strong. Like they're becoming more and more like Bullroar, right? The Great Took. So, but they don't have the same kind of wisdom and foresight and even just perception that Frodo has. Frodo still has that. He's still the oldest Hobbit. He's the most experienced Hobbit. He's been, even if you think about the journey, the adventure, the quest, whatever, he went through a different path than the rest of them, and he's able to see here that like this is what's really going on, guys. Like it's not just all. It's just not a rah thing here. Like Lotho's not to blame. Like I feel bad for Lotho. I feel pity. And it's, again, Frodo's ability to express and share pity. I mean, we see it even at the very end, right? Even at the very end, he tells the hobbits when we get there to this battle, no bloodshed, no Hobbit blood shed if possible, no bloodshed at all if possible. Like, I've seen enough of death. Because, I mean, you think you come in, you'd want to kill them all, wouldn't you? Like, if they took over your home, you'd think, screw this, man. Like, they're all fair game.
Right.
And the one Hobbit who could honestly should be hurt most by this is the one saying, just because of what he went through and that it was all on his back and that he deserves a homecoming more than anyone, is the one who's like, just never mind. And I think that's kind of the point, is Frodo's never coming back home.
Yeah, for sure.
He might be back in the Shire, but it's like he's not expecting a homecoming because there's no place on this earth he belongs any longer.
Well, and that's the thing. He's done a task. He's completed something that was of great service to the world. And so when you do things like that, I do think of great heroes and those individuals who are called upon to do those tasks. Like they when they come back, they need a different kind of rest. Yeah,
for sure, man.
And that's what Frodo needs. He needs a different type of rest.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that, because actually something you said too is really interesting. It does kind of tie into the next chapter, the final chapter, and just that, like, who's remembered the most and who's singing renowned about the various Hobbits. Like, Frodo's not it's Pippin and Merry and Sam who stand out the most, and it's that there's irony in that, and they recognize it, but. That's why it had me crying, dude. Jeez, I'm just, woo, man. So, there's so much there. So he's come back. Oh, I wanted to. When you look at the characters, I have so many thoughts run through my head here. So, when you look at these hobbits, you were talking about how Pippin and Merry kind of behave a little differently than Frodo, and I look at, like, who were they next to? Who were they closest to in the Fellowship? And did some of that kind of rub off a little bit? I think that'd be an interesting, take and way to go look at these things. I mean, look at
it's a YouTube
Merry.
video.
Yeah, for sure. Like Merry with Theoden and Pippin and Gondor, and then Sam and Frodo, and then also even before that, their closeness to Gandalf and Frodo, talking to Gandalf quite a bit, and then Boromir's influence on the hobbits, all of that. They all had they went on the same journey, air quotes, same journey, but yet very different journeys.
Well, and if you think about it too, I guess in a simple explanation, you've got Merry and Pippin who are with the warriors. Mm-hmm. They're doing battle. They're fighting. They're not having to think a whole lot about what they're about. They're either defending themselves or they're attacking the enemy quickly while there's still time, or they're just in the midst of battle, right? Fighting, not thinking necessarily. Frodo and Sam, the entire journey for them was calculating. Who do we trust? Who do we not trust? Where do we go? How do we know it's the right place? Is this the end? Is this the end, or are we going to be able to find some way to make it through? They were thinking the whole time, and it was more, if any, it was as much in here as it was physical. And for the other two, I mean, like Merry wasn't deciding where Rohan was going. Pippin was taken to Minas Tirith by Gandalf because he said that's where you're going. So they were more. Like they kind of were treated more like soldiers in a way, and that's sort of how we see them acting. They're these warriors, right? It's like, let's act, let's not really even. They just weren't trained to think that way, I think, as necessarily maybe Frodo and Sam had experienced, and just that force. I mean, just that like perception that Frodo has as well that he had before, but
yeah, it's enhanced. Yeah, for sure,
definitely enhanced. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, I think.
Well. And as you say, the lesson he learned. I mean, when he first starts off, he doesn't understand why. It's unfortunate that Bilbo had pity, right? But that's the lesson is that that's what we need. We need to have more pity and grace, and we need to have better understanding and forgiveness for one another. And ironically, that's exactly what we needed to win this whole thing. And so he's kept that, and it's his job now to pass that on and be that reminder. Because I think once you've learned something and you've acquired that knowledge, I don't think you should be shaming other people because they don't know about it. I think you should be trying to enhance them with the knowledge that you've been given and their experience. So
it might honestly just be something they've never thought of before, right?
Yeah.
You can't blame someone for not having, just a thought having not occurred to them. That's why we learn from each other and try to teach each other as well.
Right.
So
that's right.
Okay, so while we're on this, I don't want to forget about it because it's just a thought I had. I think it's also really cool that we have 4 hobbits, right? And I'm sitting here staring at this map. I can't stop looking at this map. And there are 4 farthings of the Shire.
Yeah.
And you've got Merry and Buckland in the east. And you've got Frodo and Sam in Hobbiton in the north. And then you've got Pippin in Tookland, which is like southwest. So it's kind of both, which is also fitting for Tooks, right? Not necessarily one thing. They're mysterious. So it's literally like the 4 corners of the Shire are represented in these hobbits. Like that's a whole new meaning when I read it. When we read this again, we go back through. I'll think about that. Like this is literally 4 representatives of like the expanse of the differences in the Shire itself, representing the Shire. It's not just one person, right? It's not one hobbit,
right?
It's 4 very different hobbits from all over the Shire. It's just crazy.
No, it is. I'm glad you brought that because when we first started this whole thing, am I remembering or thinking where Tookborough or Tooklin is? No, I didn't. I wasn't thinking about Pippin in that regard or where these hobbits were from. I mean, so this is neat at the end to kind of come back here and see these different regions and places represented that we've heard about, and now here we are. So so they decide a couple of things. Frodo, again, as we said, reminding them to not that it may come to a fight, and if it does come to a fight, he doesn't want hobbits killed if possible. Like that's not what he wants. And even these ruffians and things, if we can do this without hurting hobbits, that's the goal here, right?
Yeah, and that like no hobbit had ever killed another hobbit on purpose. I think that's interesting too because that's like I'm sure it's not intended that way, but I think about Smeagol, right?
Yeah,
and how he killed Deagle, and how it's kind of almost like a way. That I'm seeing it as a reader, I'm like, that's kind of a way Frodo is helping counter that. Like that's something that happened in the Ring's history where a hobbit-like creature killed another hobbit-like creature. We're not going to end this journey with anything even close to that. But
Yep. Exactly. So they then are kind of debating about whether or not what to do. So Sam says, they should maybe go. He's talking about Cotton, right? So he's like, I have an idea. Let's go to old Tom Cotton's house down South Lane, and we can, there's some good lads there, good friends of mine.
Some good ladies too, right?
Right, that's right.
Or a lady.
Yep, that he's been thinking about. Mary though says no, right? It's time we've been getting undercover is not going to work. We need to act now. They are worried that they won't be able to surprise the ruffians again, and that they're going to need to get more. This a couple times here our boldness and our confidence and stuff and our drawing of swords has scared people off, but it's going to come to a fight. And when it does, we need to be ready. So he's deciding to go off there and raise the Shire, wake all the people. And he basically says they hate this, and he's trying to get everybody up, right? So Sam, you can go make a dash for Cotton's farm if you like. And it's there is wisdom in this. I mean, not even
big time.
It's also not just that he wants to go.
I just love the double meaning. It's like there's two purposes there. It's great. Yeah,
which I love.
Smart man. Yep, smart Hobbit, I should say.
It actually makes me, can I say, I just want to say this, okay? Gosh, I do just love this. I love that he wants to go see Rosie. I love this.
Oh, yeah. And it's beautiful.
It's not said right away. And when you read it again, you're sort of like, yeah, there is more there. And imagine, I'm just going to be completely honest here, okay? In reading this, and I didn't do this the first time through. I don't even really entirely remember in high school when I was reading this.
Yeah.
This last chapter. I remember this chapter. I remember the last chapter more so. But like, this didn't land as much with me as it does now, and I'm sort of like, man, if I were coming back and you're that close to the girl that you've loved and you want to go check in. I mean, yeah, you've been at war. You didn't think you were going to make it back. I mean, like you're just like, let's go. I mean, here he goes. Yep. So
let's go see how she's doing.
Yeah, so it's awesome. And there's wisdom, too, in that Tom Cotton is also someone who's like the chief guy around here. He's the chief Hobbit. I mean, like, air quote, chief, in that people respect him and he's well known. Yep. And he's someone who you could kind of, good to have on your side. So they do that. I guess so. As he's rushing there, we do see kind of like Mary, riding off, blowing the horn, right? The horn of Rohan. And awake, cool, awake, man. Fear, fire, foes, awake. So he's getting everybody roused, and that's pretty awesome.
And isn't it also cool how like Theoden had an interest in hearing the tales of the hobbits? Yeah. And now there's a piece of his country that is a part of the tales of hobbits.
Man.
Isn't that poetic? Isn't that beautiful, man?
You're good. Anytime I think about Theoden and Mary, I get a little emotional.
Like a father, he was like a father to me for a time. Well, like that's just so cool that he is now in one of the tales. Like he it's just great. It's just great. No,
yeah, it is, and it's also that like Mary has that same spirit. Once Theoden is awakened, like it's rousing your people. We've been in a stupor. Yeah. Wormtongue has been in our ear.
Yes.
Yeah. It's this is the time is.
And
now
how ironic that Wormtongue is here. He's also a part of this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's very similar. Word choice too. This awake. Fear, fire, foes. So, yeah, he's off doing his thing, getting everybody raising the Shire. Sam though then goes on down here, and we'll talk to Farmer Cotton for a bit. And his three young lads, young Tom, Jolly, and Nick. All right, so young
How would you
Tom
like the
Cotton.
name? How would you like the name Jolly Cotton?
Jolly Cotton.
That sounds like an inn or a tavern.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. Nick Cotton is there. So.
Yep.
But yeah, so they're first on guard, sort of like wondering if this is a ruffian, is this a stranger? But no, it's Sam Gamgee. And they realize he's a Hobbit, and he says he identifies himself. And they're excited. They're also kind of, you'd be a little blown away that this guy is back. And we find out we find out that Tom Cotton has been taking care of his dad later on. That's a little bit later on, but man, such a cool. That part made me a little emotional too. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, wow, how thankful. I'm just gonna say it now so I don't forget, because Sam is so thankful later that they looked after, his dad. And that they took him in, they gave him a bit of food, made sure he was okay. It just broke my heart a little bit for Sam to think about that. And he's like, I'll never forget that. Thank you so much. That means so much that you would take care of him like that. When Sam wasn't able to, and he needed. I just hope that's the thing, right? We all want to be that way. Think about that. The person out, who needs taking care of, and their friends or their family, and they don't have anyone to do that. If you have a chance to be that for somebody for a time, that's amazing. Do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Yep. Truly.
But they Oh boy, okay. So they're basically deciding. So it has begun at last, right? That's what Farmer Cotton says. I've been itching for trouble all this year, but folks wouldn't help. I've had the wife and Rosie. Yeah, I've had the wife and Rosie to think of. These ruffians don't stick at nothing. So he's like, "Come on, lads. Bywater is up. We must be in it." So the fight is like it's go time. They are ready to go.
Yep.
Sam's wondering though about what about Mrs. Cotton and Rosie, right? It isn't safe yet for them to be left alone. And he says, "But my Nibs is with them. But you can go and help him if you have a mind," said Farmer Cotton with a grin. Then he and his sons ran off towards the village. If you have a mind, of course he does. You know how you get to that point where like you're beyond. I'll tell you this. Here's something funny for the podcast, right? I'm well beyond this point. But you know when you're first like in that you're younger and you're dating, right? Yeah. And it's sort of like you and I guess, right? And it's that girl's dad. Maybe you know, like you're a little bit worried about. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, you and I are dating, or
no? Oh boy,
okay,
here we go. Yeah,
I was confused by your phrasing. Yeah, okay.
Like when we were younger.
Oh yeah,
much younger, right? So at first, you know, like this, I don't think this exchange would have happened, but at some point, it gets to the point where it's like, all right, when is we want Rosie? Even Dad is sort of like got the grin, you know. Come on, Sam, you know, like go get her, right? I mean, it's like. It's almost about time. It's about time.
Yeah, it's like that point where it's like, we know you're not really hanging around us for us, okay? Like,
right, yeah.
It's okay. Go see her before you join us. Like, we know what's going on here. We know
exactly.
You like us, but it's not about us, okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Let's see. Here we go. So they're talking just a bit. He hurried up to the house and he's meeting Mrs. Cotton. Has a kind of a quick conversation with Rosie, and she's wondering where he's been. They said you were dead, but I've been expecting you since the spring. Man. You haven't hurried back, have you? Right? Perhaps not, said Sam, abashed. But I am hurrying now. We're setting about the ruffians, and I've got to get back to Mr. Frodo. And here we go. I have to read this, but I thought I'd have a look and see how Mrs. Cotton was keeping, and you, Rosie, right? We're keeping nicely, thank you, said Mrs. Cotton, or should be, if it weren't for these thieving ruffians. Well, be off with you, said Rosie. If you've been looking after Mr. Frodo all this time, what'd you want to leave him for as soon as things look dangerous?
Yeah.
Classic. And with that, I don't have. I mean, you ever get those situations like, I can't explain this all right now. Yeah. You're right. I'm just gonna be silent. It's time to go. And so he does. He's gonna take back. And when he does get back, he finds that the whole village is roused. Already, apart from many younger lads, more than 100 sturdy hobbits were assembled with axes and heavy hammers, long knives, stout staves, and a few hundred hunting bows. Man, they're armed up.
But I want to ask you, Ez, like, even though Sam is seeing all this stuff, when the idea of coming to battle again, right, is presented before him, how much do you think those words, Rosie's parting words, are echoing in his ears? I think you look fine, Sam. Go on.
Yeah,
now.
Go on now.
I think you look fine. Like, that's what he was wanting, baby. He was wanting that. He was wanting to know, you know what? She thinks I look fine. I got nothing to lose, man.
I'm going to tell you right now.
I'm glad I came up and checked on him.
Here's what's happening. I'll just tell everybody this, right? So Sam hears that, and he sees the town, you know, everyone's ready to go. Everyone, you know, we got 100 hobbits here. He's literally like, fellas, take a back seat. I got this one. You know? Yeah. You can have my back, but let me at him. I mean, like, he's so pumped up. He's riding on, like, cloud nine. His chest is out. I mean, he's ready to go.
The only way that could have been better is if she would have, like, taken a hanky out and given it to him, and he was like, my lady's colors, and put it right in his pocket or something, you know? I mean, like, that's... it doesn't get more classic than that. That's classic.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I kind of get a sense of the energy here. Like when he's back here, I can almost imagine too. In my head, he's having a few more conversations with folks about that conversation with Rosie. And all right, you know, he's back. He's nodding his head. It's go time. Let's finish this. I got something. I mean, really, he's got a new energy. And it's great. I love it. I love it. I think
maybe that's what Sam needed too, because coming into his home, seeing everything in ruin, like that was the one. Like Rosie is literally a flower, like the last flower in Hobbiton, and as a gardener, right? That's what Sam lives for. I think also that we not to go back, but when we come into Hobbiton and see it like destroyed and the water and the trees and even the little Hobbit homes that were by the pool in ruin, poolside, weeds everywhere, that we see it through the gardener's eyes. Because this was a place, not only is that how he sees the world, but this is a place that was taken, like the natural beauty and the way that even the hobbits worked the land was taken, a great pride was taken in that. And so the fact that we see it through his eyes, and then to even know that it crushes Frodo, it crushes the other two, but him, I think most of all, because of his attachment to the land and to the beauty of the garden of Hobbiton. Yeah,
this is why Sam is so loved. I mean, you're exactly right. Yeah, like he is.
To your point, I think he may have needed that moment with Rosie more than any of our other characters. I think it does. It rouses him. He's like, here, okay, all right. There's one flower left in Hobbiton I'm fighting for. There's one flower left.
Right.
This gardener's fine.
Oh wow. Yeah. So, okay, as he's back here, he finds his friends sitting around a fire that's way too big, and I'm sure they've used way too much.
Daily allowances.
Daily allowances are definitely used. A week's worth are definitely used up here. A group of sheriffs, just to kind of get through this part. There's not really a whole lot here. The sheriffs kind of show up, and some of them they're dumbfounded by this large group of hobbits, and some of them take off their caps and they join over. Right? They join the revolt, and that's awesome. What are you going to do? I mean, they wanted to join up anyway, so
let's go.
If there's going to be a fight to be had here, the hobbits are going to fight with other hobbits.
Be on the right side.
Against the ruffians. The rest of them are going to, we don't really know what to do, and we're going to, it's a revolt. I mean, this is a time of revolt for them. So they go over the ruffians and like their weapons. They talk about what they have. Whips, knives, clubs, enough for their dirty work is essentially what Cotton says. But I dare say they've got other gear if it comes to fighting. Some have bows anyways. They've shot one or two of our folk. Wow, there you are, Frodo, said Merry. I knew we should have to fight. They started the killing. Not exactly. Leastways not the shooting. So here we go. Hold on a second.
There's been some mischief, baby.
They didn't necessarily start this. Took started that, you see.
Pippin's papa.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So he definitely had he was having none of this whole Lotho being chief, right, from the beginning. Exactly. So he basically says, that if anyone was going to play chief at this time of day, it would be the right Thane of the Shire. I mean,
woo! Let's get it.
Right, and no upstart, right?
I love it. I love it, man.
They're claiming royalty there a little bit. They're saying it's look here.
It's almost like clans, right? Like we've been around a lot longer. You're not even you're a pro. What are you, Lotho? I mean, you're a Sackville Baggins. Let's get out of here.
Right. The Tooks are a big deal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
And then Pippin, good for the Tooks, right? But someone is going to have to get in again now. I'm off. He wonders if anyone is coming with him to Tuckborough. He decides like that's a group we can get and we can kind of rouse.
Yep.
So Pippin rode off with half a dozen lads on ponies. See you soon, he cried. It's only 14 miles or so over the fields. I'll bring you back an army of Tooks in the morning. Man. Merry blew a horn call after them as they rode off into the gardening night. The people cheered.
Man. So cool.
I know. So we're getting ready for a big battle. Let's see what else we need to do here, though. So here we go. All the same, said Frodo to all those who stood nearby. I wish for no killing. So he sees that people are there's cheering. The Tooks maybe struck first, which is actually not a bad. I mean, hey, they're in here. They know there's mischief going on, and hobbits are getting hurt. So, but he still says, I'd prefer it not to be the case. All right, said Merry, but we shall be having a visit from the Hobbiton gang any time now, I think. They won't come just to talk things over. And essentially, this is where they create sort of that big circle. I'm just going to get right to it, I guess, And when the gang does show up, Merry really is laying plans for them.
Yes.
And they confront these ruffians, this group of them that show up. And I think, at first they roll up on, I think it was Tom Cotton, right? And so here we go. The leader says this.
He's sitting there having a fire around their question is fire, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he says, who are you, and what do you think you're doing, said the ruffian leader. Farmer Cotton looked at him slowly. I was just going to ask you that, he said. This isn't your country, and you're not wanted. Let's go. Let's go. Hold on. Who's asking the questions?
That's right.
This is a great chat. This is a chapter. It'll fire you up,
So good. Oh, man.
So he's not having any of it. This actually kind of reminds me of my dad, who's a big union guy, who all the time is like, sometimes you got to push back.
Yeah.
Sometimes
there you go. Let him know you're still there. Yep.
Sometimes, like, hold on here.
Yep.
I'm asking the questions.
That's right, man.
Oh, he cracks me up. But yeah, so, yeah. Well, you're wanted anyhow, he said. We want you. Take him, lads. Lock holds for him, right? So this is just crazy. I mean, what has he done? What has he done, Lane? He hasn't done anything wrong.
Burning a lot of wood, man.
Yeah, I guess.
Just
right?
kidding. I don't know. Yeah. Nothing. He's done nothing.
Nothing.
They're trying to suppress this,
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Demonstration here. It's uprising.
So, what are you thinking here when about 200 hobbits start creeping out of the dark? I mean,
I'm hitting the hills. I'm out. I'm out.
It's over. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let me put my sword down or my club.
I'm backing away.
You guys were right about this.
Yep.
I'm out.
Here's the keys.
So because this is they got him. I mean, Merry stepped forward. We've met before, he said to the leader, and I warned you to not come back here. I warn you again. You are standing in the light, and you are covered by archers. If you will lay a finger on this farmer or anyone else, you will be shot at once. Lay down any weapons that you have. So the leader, he basically tries to, foolishly decides to fight.
Yeah.
And he thought that he could maybe break out of this ring of hobbits. And boy, oh boy, was that a mistake. So he aimed, as he's running towards Merry, he aims his savage blow at Merry, who's standing in his way, just standing there, and boom. I think they said 4 arrows, right? Hit him and bring him down. They shoot him down. You're not touching Merry. That's the other thing too. It's kind of like, no, we're not. Merry. I can honestly just picture Merry just standing there saying, "Bad idea. It's over." I don't think he moves. I don't think he flinches or anything.
He doesn't. Nope.
I think, and his other Hobbit friends are. It's not. And again, as Frodo said, they don't want this.
No.
But he's aiming a savage blow at Merry and was likely to kill him. So it's just tough. So
it's amazing.
With that, all right, yeah. With that, the rest of them kind of at that point give up and are taken away. Essentially,
seems almost too easy. Cotton says. Yeah.
Right. All right. Let's see. Yeah. There's more still to be done, said Merry. If you're right in your reckoning, we haven't dealt with a tithe of them yet. But it's dark now. I think the next stroke must wait until morning. Yeah. Then we can call on the chief. Why not now, said Sam. It's not much more than 6 o'clock, and I want to see my gaffer. Do you know what's come of him, Mr. Cotton? And then this is where, and we'll kind of summarize this just again, where Cotton kind of says that he treated him well and did best he could. We learned that Bagshot Row was dug up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and he was put out of a house, and it's awful. Yeah. Absolutely awful. Thank you indeed, Mr. Cotton, and I'll never forget it. So, yeah. But he wants to see him. But I want to see him. That boss and that Sharky, as they spoke of, they might do mischief up there before the morning. So if word does get back that this has happened, they're worried that maybe something could go down before we have time to get there.
Yep.
Sam specifically is worried about that. All right, Sam, said Cotton. Choose a lad or two and go fetch him to my house. And then bring him back. So Sam goes off. Merry arranges for lookouts around the village. They guard the barriers. Then he and Frodo went off to Farmer Cotton's house. They sat with the family in the warm kitchen, and the Cottons ask a few polite questions about their travels, but really they're not listening to the answers. It's sort of just courtesy, very concerned about what's the state of things. And there's a lot to be, it's in fairness to them, we just raised the Shire, and we're trying to take back our country. So it's you're excused here, okay?
Yeah.
So they go over the history of this, and that it all began with Pimple, as we call him, said Farmer Cotton. He began as soon as you had gone off, Mr. Frodo. He's got funny ideas. He'd acquired a bit more land than maybe they even realized, actually. So he had some. So again, some of this was brewing, before they left.
Yeah, he was turning into a megacorp.
Right.
Right. I mean, he was buying stuff up and spreading his power and influence. And
that's right. Yeah, look at the mill. Look at the change in the mill. And at one point, I think Farmer Cotton says something like, if they keep at it at this rate, they're gonna turn the Shire into desert land, into useless, just barren kind of land, because it's being farmed to exhaustion, and it's destroying the land. So
yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, eventually we ask the question. So in all this talk, we get down to the question of who is Sharky, right? I've heard the ruffians speak of him, and they say he's the biggest ruffian of the lot, seemingly. Answered Cotton. It was about last harvest, end of September maybe, that we first heard of him. We've never seen him, but he's up at Bag End, and he's the real chief now, I guess. Yeah. So they've heard of him, and this is where, you get into all that stuff where, the pipeweed, the long bottom, all that stuff was being sent somewhere. Their resources were being used.
Pieces are starting to come together. Yeah.
Yeah, being used for ill purposes and things, and to stock his own storeroom. So, they talk about Sandyman's Mill, right? And they talk about basically how that was kind of turned. How that was used. Well, and they talk about Ted Sandyman. Shout out there, Jimmy. What a fool.
Yep.
What a fool, Lane.
I know.
And
man.
Sam will tell him. Sam will tell him later on. Sam is so disappointed later on when that conference. Well, actually, that's right here. I think we're about right there. Well, we're almost there. So yeah, we learn more about the conversion of the mill. And then we learn...
Lobelia. Yep.
And that's a surprise, I think, to our hobbits, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't expect her to be someone who was defiant and who was wondering what was going on at Bag End and is inquiring into all of this and was the first one to kind of put up a fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then also it shows, like you talked about, like these little... any kind of questioning or uprising that went up, not uprising, but like what could be the seed of that, they squashed right away. And that's how they were able to keep this kind of thing from happening before and scaring hobbits who could be roused but needed, the right circumstances or right words or whatever to get them to that point.
So this is coming to me now. So they actually... In an effort to kind of control Pimple a little bit, right? They took Pimple's old ma, and he was fond of her, and no one else was. Some of the Hobbiton folk, they saw it. She comes down the lane. I'm going to read this. It's important. Some of the ruffians were going on with a big cart. Where you be going? She says, to Bag In. They say, what for? She says, to put some sheds up for Sharky. They says... who said you could? She says, Sharky, they say, or says they. So get out of the road, old haggling. I'll give you, Sharky, you dirty thieving ruffians. And so she kind of goes at him. So I think, them kind of move that, maybe perhaps old Pimple, old Lotho gets a little more disorderly or is not as agreeable after that little confrontation with his, with Lobelia, right? That's got to be tough. And that's where Frodo, as you say, he gets in over his head. And, yeah. All right. With that, so once we get through, we kind of just catching up on the events there, and then Sam kind of comes back with his gaffer. They come back in, and he informs Mr. Frodo that basically this is his fault. Mm-hmm. Frodo, it's your, as soon as you left, right?
Stuff started going awry.
It started going bad, right? And Frodo's response is great. He says, "I'm very sorry, Mr. Gamgee," said Frodo, "but now I've come back, and I'll do my best to make amends."
Yeah.
Well, you can't say fairer than that, said the gaffer.
You won me back over.
Yeah, Mr. Frodo Baggins is a real gentle hobbit. I've always said, whatever you may think of some others of his name, begging your pardon. And actually, that's kind of, I think of Frodo's response there. It's just a great response, right? Yeah. So, well, hey, I'm back, and I'm going to do what I can. You know, if a mistake was made or whatever, he does. Not that there really was one.
Right.
But, again, that's sort of, Mr. Gamgee looking at him saying, all right, there he is. Fine old Mr. Frodo.
Right.
Real good.
Well, I mean, I guess the fault you could put on Frodo is that he sold Bag End to the Sackville Bagginses, right? I mean, I guess that's something that they could have thought, oh, well, now that place is gone to, and now that's exactly where it's the it's ironically like the place where all this evil is based out of, right?
Yeah.
But not much there.
No, yeah, it's just I think it's more a setup for his response. Yeah. Also, kind of like Tolkien set that whole bit up as you said earlier about the how like the irony and that to go all the way to Mordor and come back. It's like that's totally it's odd that's in that that this is in that's in this chapter. It's like Tolkien kind of saying like it's almost like breaking.
You can run, but you can't hide, friends.
So, there's a mention about Sam getting mixed in with strange company, and he's sort of like, y'all wearing strange garb, but it is what it is. Good to see you back, and so there's that. Now, when they wake up in the morning, we've heard from Tooklin that the old Thane has raised the countryside, and here and they're got some reinforcements.
Tooks are there,
right? All right, so it seems as if none of their old ruffians were left up at Bag End, said Cotton, but the gang from Waymeet will be along anytime soon. So they're getting ready there. The next news was not as good. Mary, who had been out all night, came riding in at about 10 o'clock. There's a big band about 4 miles away, he said. They're coming along the road from Waymeet. But a good many stray ruffians have joined up. There must be close to 100 of them, and they're fire raising, right? So this is not good. All right, so this is crazy. So the Tooks are showing up, hoping that they can come sooner. Before long, they marched in 100 strong from Tookborough and the Green Hills with Pippin at their head. What a great sight! Pippin's there leading them in.
Just Billy Boyd. Can't you see just Billy Boyd leading in an army?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. So they knew that the countryside had been risen against them and plainly meant to deal with the rebellion ruthlessly at its center in Bywater. Okay, so this is where we're at.
Yep.
But however grim they might be, they seem to have no leader among them who understood warfare. All right, so that's a problem for them. They came on without any particular, without any precautions, and Mary laid his plans quickly.
Isn't this cool that well, again, another one of the benefits of them having been with these great armies is that they saw how they operated, and they learned warfare, and they learned tactics, and again, like that's you don't even think about it until that moment right there. Well, of course the hobbits. They're not a warring people. Like they're not soldiers. They don't have like the same kind of army that Gondor would, that Rohan does, so they wouldn't even know how to think about waging a battle against more than 4 or 5 ruffians. So just another like providential moment there where it's like, hey, guys, I was sort of in this a few big battles, picked up a few things, talked to Theoden, a pretty good, what would you call it, tactician. So I got us. Don't worry about it.
war chief, if you will, commander,
no big deal.
king,
right?
Yeah. So what they actually to kind of summarize this, they get him into a bit of a trap here and try to give him a warning. Again, this is Frodo's voice. They're recalling like, yeah, we're gonna try to. We've got you. You're surrounded. Some of them start to even put their weapons down, but then the other ruffians won't have it, and they kind of
There's a great
they get him back in the battle.
illustration I found of one of these like sort of ruffians kind of trapped, and the hobbits up around them, getting ready to pounce and do some battle. They're a great illustration. If you need to find some visual companions to go along with this chapter, there is great art out there for this chapter specifically, both like fan and like professional artists. It helps a lot because this is unlike anything. I mean, we get a little glimpse in the movie just from the Mirror of Galadriel sequence, but like other than that, this would be kind of difficult to imagine because when we're in the Shire, it's not in this state, and just like hobbits as a group doing battle, it's crazy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it is kind of hard to picture, and it's good to have those visuals because, especially that last black and white one there that you've got in the dock. They got their pitchforks, and there's a
baby,
sturdy group
picture. Yep.
Oh yeah. So yeah, they're not cowed as easily though, just by Merry, telling them to put their weapons down and things like that. So a fight breaks out. This is the battle, man. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the battle.
Yep.
So, a few of them, as I said, were obeying, and they immediately were set upon by their fellows. A score or more broke back and charged the wagon. 6 were shot, but the remainder burst out, killing 2 hobbits and then scattering across the country in the direction of the woody end. 2 more fell as they ran. Merry blew a loud horn call, and they were answering calls from the distance. So they got him over there. Don't worry.
Dunzo.
Yeah, they won't get far. That country is alive with our hunters. Which just makes you think there's a lot of hobbits. I mean, there's a lot of them.
They're angry. They're very angry.
They've answered the call here. So, behind the trapped men in the lane, still about 4 score. So still quite a bit here. Tried to climb the barrier and the banks, but the hobbits were, able to shoot many of them and hew them with axes. But many of the strongest and most desperate got out of the west side and attacked their enemy fiercely, being now more bent on killing than escaping. Several hobbits fell, and the rest were wavering, when Merry and Pippin, who were on the east side, came across and charged the ruffians. Merry himself slew the leader. Wow. And actually, so in all here, once the battle is over, nearly 70 of the ruffians lay dead on the field, and a dozen were prisoners. It's a lot.
Not crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. 19 hobbits were killed, and some 30 were wounded. The dead ruffians were laid on wagons and hauled off to an old sand pit nearby, and they were buried. They call that the battle pit. Okay, man.
That's awesome.
Ooh, and I thought this was pretty neat that the fallen hobbits were that they were laid together on a hillside. Yeah. Where later a great stone was set up in the garden about it, and so ended the Battle of Bywater, 1419.
Yep. So this is kind of cool. This happened on November 3rd, which is Sarah's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that cool?
Wow. Yeah.
So one of those big Middle Earth days that my...
Gosh, it just runs in your family, isn't it?
Except for me, man. Except for me. It's great.
That's interesting. So that's the last battle there that was fought in the Shire. And it was the only battle since Greenfield's 1147. So a little reference to that battle. Now the hobbits who died, all the hobbits moving forward, and whether it's upbringing, schooling, or whatever, had to memorize those names of those hobbits who gave their lives.
Not cool.
I think, I was like, wow, this is really setting this up here.
I also love how he goes into the future and tells us, like, the ramifications of this battle. I'm not going to get time to do it, essentially, is what he's saying in this story, but I want to let you know what happened. And I love when he does that, when he's just like, time is just another thing I'm going to play with. It's fine. Like, I'll go ahead or I'll go way back, and you'll love it because it's really cool because it adds to the story and it shows you how real it is. Like that just again that makes that a very realistic thing that the little hobbits would memorize those names and it's just neat. Yeah.
All right, so to kind of speed us along here, so Frodo says that it's time. They realize it's time to go on ahead here and really deal with the chief, Sharky, if you will. And so they decide to do that. And as they move forward, they get closer to Bagshot Row there, where it's been tore up. And they realize the saddest part of this is that the party tree has been cut down.
Yep.
Sam is just outraged by that, and it's where Bilbo gave his farewell speech. Mm-hmm. It was lying lopped and dead in the field.
Big time, man. That's
he burst into tears, and as you said, this is where he's really hurting. I mean, hobbits have died. They've farmed this land to where it's exhausted, and then they're tearing it up, and then to cut down a tree like that.
And for no reason, too. Like, that's what Cotton says earlier. There was a line he had where he said that they would just cut trees, let them lie, and burn them. So not even for a purpose. It's
right.
Also that senseless destruction that I think, definitely irks Sam, but like all the hobbits in general, that's the salt in the wound. Like, we're gonna destroy this land, but we're not even gonna use it for anything either.
Yeah. And that's what Sharky says to him here in a little bit, and that's the crazy thing is that this was an extra hurt. Yeah. Yep. An extra hurt. Well, and that's such a hard thing to replace. But
they find a way.
There's a way.
They find a way. Yep.
But so this is where we come across Ted Sandyman, and it's just he needs to just get out of the way. He's trying to mock Sam here. I love how Sam's demeanor kind of changes just a little bit. So. He's saying, don't you like it, Sam? You always were soft, and I thought you'd get one of them ships and go sailing or whatever. And he's like, what'd you come back for? We've work to do now in the Shire. We've work to do in the Shire now. And Sam, you can almost see like he just gets this calm on himself, and he says, so I see. No time for washing, but time for wall propping. But see here. Master Sandyman, I have a score to pay in this village, and don't you make it any longer with your jeering. You're a fool. Wow, you're a foot and a bill too big for your purse. So he's having none of it. I love all two, by the way. What does that even mean, right?
Yeah,
your foot. I need to look into some of these.
You'll foot a bill, so you'll spend more than you have.
Right.
I'm gonna kick your butt, bro. You're gonna say too much.
Right, and then it's on. Yeah.
Yep.
So he spits over the wall, and he get like a bit of. I think he runs off and he tries to get the big boss when he sees this group. I mean, he's got a host with him, right?
Yeah.
So let's see here Ted gaped for at that moment he first caught sight of the escort. Of the side of the escort that at the sign from Mary now marched over the bridge, dashing back into the mill.
It's all these big mouths. They've got such words, but they
He's
get
so
scared.
Cocky.
Yeah, they get scared.
Ted is so
instantly.
cocky.
Yep.
And then
Can't back it up.
How are they? You're running your mouth like this. I mean, it's
it's ridiculous.
Why, I mean, do you not know what's going on here? Have you not heard the horn blows? Do you not know what's up? I mean, So at the top of the lane, the party halted, and Frodo and his friends went on, and they came at last to the once beloved place. The garden was full of huts and sheds, some so near the old westward windows that they cut off all their light. There were piles of refuse everywhere. The door was scarred, and the bell chain was dangling loose, and the bell would not ring. Knocking brought no answer. At length, they pushed the door open. They went in. The place stank and was full of filth and disorder. It did not appear to have been used for some time.
Isn't that crazy? Man.
So, this is where we get the whole thing from Sam here, where this is worse than Mordor. We learned that it's miserable up in there. It didn't look good at all. That Lotho is not there, and maybe hasn't been there for some time.
Yeah, and I love that Frodo, when Sam says this is worse than Mordor, Frodo says this is Mordor.
Mm-hmm.
This is Mordor.
Wow.
Just one of its works.
Wow. Did not catch that. That's actually...
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, Saruman was doing its work all the time, even when he thought he was working for himself.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Another recurring theme, right? Like, all these people who think they're the boss, they're really not the boss. You know, that and again, that hubris of like, yeah. There's definitely that's such a lesson there, man. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
So here we go with we bring up we mentioned Saruman's name.
Yeah, this is it, man. This is it.
Magically, he appears.
Yep.
He steps out there, and they talk about had we have known that his influence or that he was having this type of influence in these workings on the Shire, we would have stuffed. I would have stuffed my pouch down Saruman's throat.
Yeah.
Again, that big talk. I mean, these guys, just they're mouthy. I love it.
Yeah.
No doubt. But you did not. And so I am able to welcome you home. There, standing at the door, was Saruman himself, looking well-fed and well-pleased. His eyes gleamed with malice and amusement. Wow. Sharky. Man. It's Sharky, friends. There he is. Wow. So he laughs. So you've heard the name. He believes Saruman's such an idiot. I'm telling you. That those who were fond of him, Beckett Isengard, that the men called him Sharky. That was he thinks it's a sign of affection,
right,
for him, right?
Right. It means old man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah. So Frodo kind of says, "I should have guessed. this. Gandalf did warn me that you were still capable of it." And he says quite capable, and so I don't know. Like, there's this whole back and forth. We learn that Saruman rushes forward to kind of, as I mentioned earlier, make this final blow, this final kind of last little mark that he's going to make, and I'm just going to essentially Gandalf isn't going to help you, and this will hurt Gandalf as well as the hobbits and stuff. It's such a pitiful thing too, because like that's all you can do is you can go pick on the hobbits in the Shire. That's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so it's sad. It's crazy. And he's fallen so low, and that's what Frodo will say later on, that when Saruman, well, first, next up here, the hobbits kind of all push up around in the windows, and Frodo tells him to be gone. Yeah. And it's like, what's wild is the hobbits want him killed. They want Sharky dead.
Yep.
And again, Frodo's lesson, and he's showing and demonstrating and modeling for them that is not the way. That's not what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Saruman was once on the White Council and is one of those who was high and revered in our land. And he has like some, reverence for that.
Yeah.
Still, even though he's fallen, and it's just sort of like, wow. And that actually even shocks Saruman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't let him go. Kill him. He's a villain. He's a murderer. Kill him. And Saruman looked around at their hostile faces. And again, this is where it's his trickery, right? He says that if they kill him, his blood will stain the Shire. There'll be a curse upon that spot, a curse upon that person, and so on. But Frodo knows that it's just, don't believe him. He's lost all his power, save his voice, that can still daunt you and deceive you if you let it. If you let it. So, go, Saruman, by the speediest way. He tells him to go. He says he's not going to have any of it. And Saruman now calls to Wormtongue.
Yeah.
Worm is there. And he comes crawling out, almost like a dog, as it says. To the road again, Worm, said Saruman. These fine fellows and lordlings are, turning us adrift again. Come along. It's pitiful. It's just pitiful. And Frodo, though, seeing Wormtongue, says, well, you've done no wrong. You don't need to go with him anymore. We can separate you right now. That's also a big deal. I mean, who does that, Lane? I mean, like Frodo.
Oh yeah.
Like you would see Wormtongue. You know what he's done before. You know the role he played with Theoden. You understand that he was locked up with Saruman.
Mm-hmm.
You know where his loyalties are.
Mm-hmm.
But Frodo's still trying to spare him and give him a chance to separate from Saruman.
Yeah, and he sees it's the same thing that was modeled earlier with his pity for Lotho is that and it's what he just alluded to. The his remaining power is his voice. It was always his strongest power, right? And that if you let it even a little bit, it influences you greatly, even against your will. Yeah, and it's another expression of that pity that he's seen modeled by Gandalf. That Bilbo taught him as well. That like, if you can save something, you should. Saving something is better than killing it. Treating revenge with revenge will heal nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I forgot about this part.
Yeah, the stabbing.
I
know, right?
When I first read this again, I was sort of, he what?
And even then, yes. And
I'm
even
still
I know.
Shocked.
He goes by, he tries to stab him, and of course he's wearing mithril, right? He's still got his mail coat on. So it snaps right off. Sam, of course, jumps forward with a cry, throws him to the ground, draws a sword. Of course, right? Now he deserves death. Like, he's being let out. He's being asked to leave. They're letting him at least leave this land, and he tries to cheap shot Frodo. No, Sam, said Frodo. Do not kill him even now, for he has not hurt me. And in any case, I do not wish him to be slain in this evil mood. He was once great, like you said. This is where he talks about his high stature he once held. He is fallen, and his cure is beyond us. But I would still spare him in the hope that he may find it. In the hope that he may find it. Like the fact that there's the fact that some sort of redemption is even possible for Saruman. Like, that is the beautiful thing about these stories. Like, they're and I think that's something we all need to like carry on with us. I think we're so quick to judge and condemn people and say, well, they're done. They're ruined forever. And what you've done, there's no way you can ever make it right. And Frodo here is showing it's so popular to do that, man, to be like, oh, forget that guy. Forget her. Oh, dude, no, dead to me, bro. Dead to me. Like, that is whether it's because of someone's religious views or political views or a personal matter, it's like, you know what? Forget them. Where we throw people away instead of going, listen, man, life is a complicated thing. Life is a long thing for many of us. Like, it's not our job to do that. It's not our job to condemn people. It's our job to try to find ways to bring people together. Like, that's what it's all about. And if someone needs redeeming, to leave that possibility for them, because that's what you would want. If you were in a similar situation and you're Saruman, like, you would like to think, even though we find out, I mean, it's clear here that he does, that's beyond his thought even, but maybe given the right circumstances, if things were different, he would be able to find that. The fact that possibility is there is what's important. Not whether he chooses it or not, but the fact that is an option for him, and that we didn't do something to cut that off. Or hobbits,
Also, this is, Frodo really showed this with Smeagol and with Gollum. I mean, it's also, there's a lesson here. There is a really good lesson, and this is actually, in the day and age that we're living in, it's actually a good reminder for everyone. I think everything you said, like literally, amen. I mean, that's the truth. But then if Saruman says, you're right, I'm wrong, and I don't know what to do anymore. I've fallen so far. I don't even know what to do. And you want to be redeemed. What's amazing is that you have to follow through on that.
Yeah.
That's what's hard. That's what we don't necessarily. I think we see it more with Gollum and Smeagol and Frodo kind of saying, okay, I mean, you're like allowing that person to have the redemption that you said that they could have.
Yeah.
But you'll find a lot of people, and this is where there's a lesson for kids and for adults and everyone here, in that allow those people to grow, and it's not going to happen instantly. I
Right.
think people expect like redemption and like if it's a learning thing, if it's a difference in with a colleague or a philosophy difference or a religious difference or whatever it may be, like that understanding that you've gained and that knowledge you have over years of whatever, that other person you're trying to communicate that to, it may take a little bit of time for them to get there, and allow them to have that process, and make yourself available and be open to counsel and mentor and things like that. I just wish there was more of that spirit in the world that we lived in. There's a lot of it. It's just a lot of times we don't hear about it as much. We hear more about those, like the other, things. So anyways, I'm really glad that you highlighted that, because that is super important. And that's, Saruman, when he does rise to his feet, he does stare at Frodo. And he has this strange look in his eyes mingled with wonder and respect, but then there's still that hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "You have grown, halfling. Yes, you have grown very much, and you are wise and cruel." I mean, that's the hatred that coming out, right? Robbing him of his sweet revenge and so on. He says, "I hate you, and well, I go and will trouble you no more, but do not expect me to wish you health and long life. You will have neither, but that is not my doing. I merely foretell." Again, trying with what he can, his words to try to sow discord and fear and things. This is where, as I said, I was leading into Wormtongue, kind of, Frodo saying, "Hey, you can stay." And my goodness, Wormtongue halted and looked back at him, half prepared to stay. Saruman turned. No evil. I mean, that's, Frodo says he had done no evil. Oh no. Even when he sneaks out at night, it is only to look at the stars. Wait, even when he sneaks out at night, it is only to look at the stars. But I did hear someone ask where poor Lotho is hiding. You know, don't you, Worm? Will you tell them? And again, this is where we learned that he was ordered by Saruman to kill him.
Yeah.
To stab him in his sleep.
Yeah.
And to bury him and things. And this so enrages Wormtongue. He's like, "You told me to do it," and so on. He springs at him, right? Sharky turns to leave. Yeah. And he springs at him with his knife.
Isn't it interesting that these two, like Saruman and Wormtongue, are also kind of like a Gollum Smeagol? In a way. Like that reminds me of that conversation they just had.
Yeah.
Is like conversations Gollum Smeagol had about, taking the ring and killing Deagle, and just those two polar, like opposites almost.
Right.
That are entwined into almost one person. Yeah. Yep. But stabs him.
And he stabs him. He kills him. Saruman's dead.
And then before Frodo could recover or speak a word, right, there are 3 Hobbit bows that twanged, and Wormtongue fell dead.
Yeah, he takes off running, and it's sad. Ultimately, you kind of thought it's amazing that we had that much opportunity for redemption. Yeah. Over and over and over again. You just kept turning it down to where you have this terrible ending. Here's probably the saddest part too. That
his spirit.
That he has his gray mist kind of gathers and it rises to a great height like smoke from fire, and it's this pale shrouded figure that loomed over the hill. For a moment it wavered, looking to the west, but out of the west came a cold wind, and it bent away, and with a sigh dissolved into nothing. It's as if Saruman was looking back for a way back, and nope. You've lost that, opportunity. It's sad. It's
crazy.
Yeah. So, and that's the end of that, said Sam. A nasty end, and I wish I needn't have seen it, but it's good riddance. And the very last end of the war, I hope, said Merry. I hope so, said Frodo, and sighed. The very last stroke. But to think that it should fall here at the very door of Bag End, among all my hopes and fears at last, I never expected that. It is unreal. I guess I'll leave you right, because Lane, it wasn't just that it was back in the Shire.
Yeah.
It came all the way back to the very door from which they left.
I know.
The
irony is crazy.
That to me is a circle. That is a ring. That is a come full circle moment. Yeah. And I just think it's crazy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and the
Unexpected.
irony is, yeah, it is. And the irony even runs into the fact that like one of your ideas when Frodo, or when they realize that this is the ring and that Frodo has it and that Bilbo's gone, something needs to be done. One of your thoughts is, dude, just hide it, stay there, keep out of sight.
Right.
You know, if you draw this out, I mean, obviously you could say that, well, the butterfly effect, right? The war would have been differently. Maybe Isengard wouldn't have been destroyed, so therefore Saruman wouldn't have come to the Shire in the first place. But Saruman was pulling these strings even then. Like the Shire wouldn't have stayed the way it was. But like the fact that hiding in your hobbit hole, right, in your home, the safe place, would keep you safe from what was out there that you were going to go face on your journey. No, it would have come to you whether you wanted it or not, whether you went into it or not. And I think really what Tolkien's saying is, if there is like this great burden, this great quest, this challenge, and there's danger, but you can go meet that danger. And we see it time and time again with all these different groups of people, with Rohan, with Gondor, with even our characters. You go into that danger. You go into it, and you'll either... You're not gonna. Your end won't find you. You'll make your end, right?
Yeah.
You'll be in control of where your destiny is decided, and it's just that not giving into fear, because that would have been him, you know, succumbing to fear, staying at home, hiding there. But
if it's not dealt with,
it would have found
if
him.
you're not a part of it. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you have to be a part of that. I mean, you can push it off down further and further and further and say, I'm not going to deal with it, but eventually it may come back, and it may be, had it just been dealt with, it would have been over and done with, and it wouldn't have destroyed you and destroyed your home and things. So yeah, I know there's a lot there. So all right, wow.
I do also love that Sam says that it's not over yet, not until the land is healed, right? I think it's very fitting that that's how we're kind of left with that. Okay, so there's all kinds of analysis of this chapter and all kinds of fun propositions and people who've written commentary about what they think it's about, and even Tolkien's words himself, and then even the kind of connections to what happened to his home village of Sarehole, which was kind of this idyllic place that he sort of was part of the inspiration behind Hobbiton. Even right down to the old mill, and how when he came back from the war, Birmingham, which was the bigger city that he moved to later, sprawled so much and grew so much, and industrialization took over so much that it kind of swallowed up Sarehole and changed what his, so essentially in the same way that the Shire was changed. But we could probably spend like a whole episode on that. So just know, I mean, I'm sure most of you do, but if you don't know that's out there, you can go read about that. I'm sure he wrote about it in his letters as well. So just really interesting. That chapter is one of the things that critics brought up, is it's almost like a little novella. It's almost like it's its own story. You could literally take that chapter, and in the same way that Tolkien expands on the world we have right here, he goes backwards and he even goes forwards in the appendices, that almost could be its own little book, its own little story. And it would feel complete. I mean, you would know that there were things that happened before and after, but you could go, wow, that was deep. I don't know what was going on before, where these characters came from, but it's almost like, in a way, probably the only standalone chapter where, and I think that's why people have reactions to it, whether they love it or they don't. It is so different. It's not how a story is supposed to kind of like descend from a climax. It's really, very realistic. But I love that chapter. I remember the first time I read it thinking, it excited me that it wasn't over yet. It excited me that it wasn't what it seemed. It was almost, I mean, it's incredibly sad to think about, the Shire being stripped of all that beauty, and it was, I don't know, it had to happen, man. It had to happen. I think it just showed the true nature of our characters even more, that they truly were changed. and that they were changed for a purpose, not just the quest they fulfilled out there, but their ability to come home and save their home and reclaim their home. That it wasn't a fleeting thing. It wasn't luck.
Right.
Like, it wasn't luck. They really are elevated. So it's great, man.
Yeah.
It's great.
No, I guess my 2 cents on that. I think, we live in a day and age where people are like, everything's the same and everyone's kind of, it's funny to me that that chapter's in there and that it's sort of a break, as people would say, from traditional storytelling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love it. I wouldn't
too.
even have really, because me personally, I wanted to know more about the Shire and I wanted to know what it was like, even if they came back and it was sort of peaceful and there was, if it was untouched, I still wanted to know about the resolution. You still want to get all of that, and we're going to. We just had a little bit more to go through, and then we're going to get to our resolution next. So
yeah.
Well,
we got Bywater Post, my friend. Do you want to read?
Yeah.
We have a few to read here. You want to read the first one?
Well, yeah. So do you? Who do you have there? You have a physical copy. Who's that from?
I have Breck's physical copy.
Okay, that's fine. Yep. We also then have Todd Robbins here on the dock.
Yeah. You want to read Todd's story?
Yep, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so here we go. My introduction, this is again from Todd Robbins. Thanks. This episode was brought to you by him. My introduction to Tolkien parallels a lot of people's. I was first introduced to the world of Tolkien through the vision of Peter Jackson with the release of The Fellowship of the Ring. I've always been big into movies, and it is a love that both my father and I share. Going to movies with him has always been a treasured memory of mine. I am now a parent myself with a 3-year-old son with another baby on the way. Wow, congrats. Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
It melts my heart when my son gets as captivated by movies as I do and curls up in my lap in my lap to watch.
Hurls. That'd be really bad.
That'd be bad. Yeah. No. I was thinking hurdles is what I was going for there.
Yeah.
I look forward to countless hours of bonding over movies in the years to come. That's awesome. After seeing Fellowship of the Ring, the movie just captivated me. It transports you to another world and left me wanting to know what happened next. With a lack of patience for the next movie to come out, I picked up a copy of The Lord of the Rings to start reading. Picking up a book that's 1,200 plus pages to read for fun would have been unthinkable by my younger self. When I was a child, I struggled in English class and remembered being put in a remedial reading in the 2nd grade. Later, it was determined that I suffered from dyslexia. Wow. I read at a slow rate because occasionally the order of words in a sentence would jumble together and not really make sense, and I'd have to go back and reread the sentence or passage. I didn't really struggle with understanding the content. I was just more impacted by being slow and needing to deliberate and needing to be more deliberate in the reading. As I moved into adulthood, I recognized the treasures that could be found in literature and the stories that they told, and pushed myself to take on some of the more daunting length books. Lord of the Rings, Atlas Shrugged, etc. Little by little, one travels far. After reading Lord of the Rings, before the Two Towers movie came out, I remember being the literary snob that was adamant that the book was way better than the movie. Looking back, I was being overtly critical of the movie because of the book, and not enjoying the ride that we were all lucky enough for Peter Jackson to take us on.
Yep.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, that happens to a lot of us. Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've caught myself doing it, even just being overly critical of Peter Jackson's movies, just in this book club, man. And that's why we did that video of, like, who is Peter Jackson? You have to stop every once in a while and think, man, what he and his team did, it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to happen. He did it like no one else could have. So yeah, Todd, I'm with you there, man. Like, it's good to remind yourself that I couldn't have done that. Like, most people couldn't have done that. So we're lucky that we have those films. Yeah.
We are, yeah. After nearly 20 years, I recently had the urge or calling to pick the book back up and to read it. Around the same time, I stumbled across a message board talking about Lord of the Rings movies and music, and someone on there mentioned for anyone looking to read/reread the books that they should listen to an unexpected podcast. It was fortuitous that I read the message board that day and followed that advice. Lane and Ez's discussion on each chapter their discussions on each chapter have increased my satisfaction of rereading the books tenfold.
Wow. That's a lot of folds.
It's a lot. I just finished Fellowship, and I'm now starting Two Towers. I look forward to devouring the next 50 podcasts, listening to Lane and Ez dissecting the chapters, and wherever this adventure goes. It's a dangerous business, Frodo.
Yes,
going out your door. Yeah, you step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. I just want to end by saying thank you for not only creating a great book club, but also fostering a warm, welcoming, and supportive community. The Fellowship is strong.
Wow.
Cheers. Todd Robbins.
Cheers to you, Todd. Todd actually, so in addition to his Tolkien story, he also mailed a copy of The Lord of the Rings. It's actually the one that my dad bought, like my favorite copy. It was like that original film tie-in 3-in-1. Just the one volume. And my cousin Luke reads from it. I have it stored away because I want to keep it as nice as I can for as long as I can. So he sent that copy to us and wanted us to sign it, put a little inscription, and sign it. Did you ever think you would sign a copy of The Lord of the Rings?
No, I mean that has been, I mean, at the party and then this, it's neat because the spirit of that was like, we're going on an adventure together.
Yeah, right.
And it was a way to actually make like an extra layer, like an extra connection. You know what I'm saying? And so to me, that was super, super cool. And I really was blown away. First of all, Todd is amazing, awesome. One of our patrons and just I mean, fantastic. So
yeah, I was blown away. I remember when we did it at the party with Tony, and I was like, Tony, you serious? Like, you want me and Ez to write in your book? I was like, dude, I don't think I'm even like I'm not worthy to do that. Like I think I'm defiling this thing by doing that. You know what I mean? He was like, no, I'd be honored. I would love it. And so it's an amazing thing. And you're right. It is that connection. Like, we've been on this journey together, and here's a little message to you. But anyway, Todd, I was blown away by that. It was no more. It was no less humbling than when Tony asked us at the party that day, and just so. Honestly, it was the cool thing was like holding your book, and
that's what I'm
I'm
saying.
like, yeah, I'm like, holy crap! I'm responsible to put this in the mail and get it back to him. And he just emailed us today. He did get it back. I haven't had time to read his email yet, but it has returned safely, and I'm just like, thank God. I was so worried. I went to the post office. I'm like, I put bubble wrap in it too, and I threw I threw like a couple of bookmarks and a pin in there and stuff. And I'm like, God, I hope like it doesn't break open or like, I don't know, like something spill and get the pages all messed up. And
right.
And he was amazing. He was like, dude, it's an old copy. It doesn't matter if it gets lost or not. I just wanted to at least try. But just so cool. Like the uppers are such amazing people. Like, not even that, just fans of Tolkien's work in Middle Earth. I don't know. Like, they're just it's an honor to get to know each one of you, each and every one of you, and I don't know. I feel humbled like on the daily. So
me too. Yeah. Thanks, Todd. I really appreciate it. It's cool. It's cool connection.
Really cool. Hearing your story and young parent as well, or a parent of young kids. So I can relate that way too, my friend. It's exciting to think about those connections. And Winnie today, she was wanting to. She loves the scene in The Fellowship where Frodo's leaving, and Sam runs out, Frodo, Mr. Frodo, and she goes, They can we watch the scene of Frodo and War? Frodo and the War, okay? I'm like, yeah, and we watched it like 5 times. She watches that to the end, and then she wants me to go back and watch it again, and So the memories with kids, it's exciting. All right, we've got an actual physical letter here. All right, this came in the physical Bywater Post, P.O. Box 96, Amanda, Ohio 43102. You can do that with one hand. I just realized that. This is from Breck. Breck also sent us a really cool bottle opener. He's a woodworker, and he made this bottle opener. And
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we need to open some bottles with it. I think he says in here that this is for you to open. I'll read it. I'm such a dummy. I'll read it later. But it's really cool because it's the metal bottle opening part built into the wood is an Ohio quarter.
Oh, wow.
Or when they did those state quarters back in the day, it's an
I
Ohio quarter. Yeah. So Breck writes, "Hey, as in Lane, I love the Unexpected podcast and the Facebook group. Thanks for all you do. Sorry if my Tolkien story isn't well put together. Writing and storytelling are not my strong suits. I first got into Lord of the Rings as a young kid, and my dad and uncle took my cousins, my sisters, and me to see Fellowship in theaters." That's ringing some bells, man. Wow. "I remember being so scared when the Black Rider was searching for the 4 hobbits, and I told my dad I had to go to the bathroom and just to get out of the theater."
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad I went back in to finish the movie because I loved it. I wonder how old Breck was when he saw this. I saw each movie in theaters and bought each DVD as they came out. I used to watch them all the time. I remember watching them at my mom's house, and she would always ask me questions the whole time. I was always so annoyed to have to explain everything. That sounds a lot like my mom would always ask, what? And she would even say stuff like, "Doesn't Aragorn look like he just needs a good bath? He looks so dirty." I'm like, "Mom, that's the charm of Aragorn. He doesn't need a bath."
Right.
So I know to have explained everything. Now I feel bad because I realize she was just trying to spend time with me and share in my interests. That's tough as a kid, man. You know, like when your parents are trying to connect and you're just like, "Mom, leave me alone. Dad, get out of here." In high school, my friends all liked Lord of the Rings too, and they finally got me to read the books. I'm so glad they did because I liked them more than the movies. In my friend group, there were 9 of us. So we decided to be the Fellowship. That is so cool.
Wow.
We all voted on who would be each character, and I ended up as Pippin. I was so happy with my choice because I always related more to the hobbits, and I was the troublemaker with good intentions of the group. It's perfect. It fit me perfectly. One day, I plan on getting a Tree of Gondor as I am a guard of the Citadel. Nowadays, I get to listen to headphones all day at work, so I listen through the audiobooks at least twice a year. Wow. I love listening to an episode and then going and listening to that chapter to catch all the cool stuff you point out that I missed. See, this is amazing because I'm thinking all these uppers we hear from that like read the book multiple times a year. I'm like, guys, we want to pick your brains. It's taken Ez and I like literally. If it wasn't for this podcast, I'd still be back in the Fellowship, man. Like this is fast for me, you know. So anyway, we just like your guys is what you pick up. It'd be cool if this could be even more interactive somehow. Anyways, I am a woodworker, and I thought I'd make you guys a cool bottle opener to help you crack open some of Travis's mead or whatever else you care to open. If you really like it, I'd be willing to make a batch of them and bug a custom woodworker to brand the Up logo on them. He's got an idea there. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You could crack open an Up mead with an Up opener. Set the glass on an Up coaster, all while smelling an Up candle, and then have some Up coffee waiting for you afterwards. That's a fun thought. Keep up the great work. You guys rock. Don't forget the sniffing. All the love, Breck.
Wow.
I love to get in like physical letters that people have written. It's just so cool. You don't get that much anymore, you know. It's like it's either people type stuff up, and that's fine too. But I love seeing people's handwriting. It's that's cool. That's awesome, Breck. Well, thank you for the bottle opener, man. Again, like your guys' not just the gifts, but the stories you tell. Man, I'm at a loss for words. As I can't. It doesn't happen often, but.
Wow. Yeah. Right. No, I think it's really neat. The other day I was over at Lane's and I got a chance to. I saw that sitting on the counter and I wasn't really sure. I know you were going to bring it up. We were going to record. Yeah. That weekend. Yeah. And then we ended up kind of doing some. We got into further up. We had some technical difficulties. Is what we had happen there, which is crazy.
Kind of forgot we had this visual element.
Yeah.
It's beautifully made.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Breck, cheers to you, my friend.
So cool.
All right, we got one more, yeah?
Yeah, we got one more. So, as I said earlier in the show, we got some youngsters sending us some stuff in. This is pretty neat. So, this is Allison Baining. So, here we go. Dear Mr. Ezra and Mr. Lane.
Mr. Ezra and Mr. Lane. I love it.
I love that.
Oh, it's so cute.
It was we're back in the Shire. It actually is,
Yeah.
Mr. Baggins.
I also feel old. Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you for coming up with an unexpected podcast. I was bored out of my mind today, and your podcast got me through it. I'm a bit behind on my listening. Before I start on my rant, there are 3 things that you should know. So this is I actually very much appreciate this. So Allison gave us a pronunciation for her name, and it's because she knows how much I need that. So, gosh, I need it with the chapter half the time. So, 2, she lets us know that she's 13, right?
Yep.
And so that she may have different opinions about the series.
Yes.
I actually think that is what's awesome about all of this. So things that you catch as a different perspective, it's a new perspective, and that's the lens here recently that Lane and I have been thinking a lot about. So that's good. 3,
big time.
This one's funny. 3, I put up with your ramblings almost every day, so please put up with mine. Okay. I have loved reading since I was 2 or so, and I first reached for a Lord of the Rings book when I was 8.
Wow.
Not yet, my dad told me. I'll read this to you. Yeah, I'll read this to you like my dad read it to me.
Wow.
I got my... It's cool. That's cool. I got my wish at age 10 when he started on The Hobbit. The Hobbit was a nice book, but it was nothing compared to The Lord of the Rings, which my dad read to me over the next 2 years. It was a turbulent 2 years, and the exploits of Frodo, Aragorn, Gandalf, and the rest helped me through bullying, anxiety, and my best friend moving away. When we were on Return of the King, my dad got a new set of Lord of the Rings books, and I received the old worn-out set that has been around since the 60s. Yeah. It's still my most prized possession.
Wow.
Now I have read the trilogy twice on my own and seen the main 3 movies. 3 movies for The Hobbit is a bit too long for my taste.
Okay,
right?
I like it. Yep.
I am working my way through the Silmarillion, and the unfinished tales are next. Yes,
this girl is doing it right,
she's on
man.
It. Right. Thank you for listening to my rambling. All the best, Allison. So,
Allison, that's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I tell you, I started getting choked up because I was thinking about just her dad saying, "Not yet. I'll read this to you." Like my dad read to me, and just thinking ahead to one or all of my girls, the same kind of conversation, saying, "Nope, I'll read it to you. Not yet, but soon." And then when that day comes and reading it to them, like, wow, that's just, I haven't even really, you spend so much time when they're little, just like minute to minute, day to day, that you don't really think, like years down the line. But wow, that took me there real quick.
I bet it did. I bet it did.
That's beautiful. And Allison, if that's rambling, we need way more rambling in the world. That was awesome. That was, oh my gosh, so inspiring.
No, and here's the thing too. I think a lot of people too, Allison, would connect with that. Like, when you're going through a hard time, it's nice to have those friends, those characters, those books that you can go to, those stories. They kind of help you through those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like truly, I there's lessons to be learned. I mean, Lane has often said sort of, what would Aragorn do? Like that was a compass.
It's my mantra.
Yeah, for him growing up. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
It's great. Awesome.
Beautiful. Wow. Again, another round of incredible Tolkien stories. That is our favorite part of every episode. We love seeing the Bywater posts full. If you're on the fence about sending yours in, I would encourage you to do it. I think people listening every episode, that's their favorite part as well. I think that like there's something about hearing other people tell just how they relate to the stories, and then how that, finding similarities and differences, and it just connects us even stronger. So beautiful. Yeah. We're into strawberries with cream, my friend. Okay, our second to last strawberries with cream. What is a wrong you've made right? So, this is all about raising the Shire and getting those ruffians out and restoring a place that we love. So what's a wrong that you have righted? That's
wow, you ready for this?
Right,
I mean,
yeah,
this is strawberries with cream, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's creamy strawberries.
Okay,
what?
I'm just saying.
What?
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, I don't know how I don't know how serious we're gonna. The first thing that pops into my mind, and I, so writing what's a wrong that I've righted, that I've made right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is going to seem so simple, and I'm sure yours is going to be really deep and heavy hitting here. Why not, right, at the end? But mine is pretty simple. The first thing that came to mind, I was thinking of I
have no idea what you're about to say. I'm ready.
I know. The pipeweed that was gone, and the shortage of that and the lack thereof, right? So, I'll never forget when I first turned 18 and I was able to buy, my dad actually choose. Now, I don't recommend this to any of you youngsters at all, but it's we have something called there's a, the hobbits smoke on pipes and things like that, and it is what it is. Not something you should get into. But there is so my dad sends me out because he was, for whatever reason, needed me to go get his tobacco. I got the wrong kind. I didn't get the right kind. And I literally have seen this thing for years, and I didn't think there was any difference between this kind and that kind. Did I find out. And it wasn't because he was just it was so great for him to be
go pick it up for me.
Ez can help me.
Yeah.
And I was it was that moment where I was like, I got you, Dad. I can do this. I'm old enough to go do this. And so I went.
I've become a man.
I was, I got my ID. Here I go. And I messed it up. But I made it right, though. I made it right. I went and I got it, and I surprised him with some stuff, and it was cool. But it was just funny.
Was this last week or?
Oh yeah, this was just a couple months ago.
Okay.
Just recently turned 18.
That's a big one. I don't think that's any kind of, I wouldn't say it's trivial at all. I mean, I'm thinking about what my chewing tobacco would be.
I mean, the Shire, that's long, that's leaf. People think,
I know it is, bro.
They don't realize
that's essential.
That's a different type of.
Okay, mine right now is pickles. I'm you know how obsessed I am with pickles with this whole window thing. I think I'm gonna break it tonight. I'm starving. I think I'm gonna go eat some pickles. I'm gonna eat some cheese stick, and I'm gonna eat some ham. I'm gonna wrap that ham around there. Oh baby, I can't wait. That window's getting opened at 1 a.m. this morning.
All right, all right.
I don't even care. It was cause for celebration. But yeah, I think pickles. If someone got me, I like trying all different kinds. But if I'm kind of set on one right now.
Yeah.
And if I said, hey Charlotte, Winnie, could you run up and pick me some pickles? And they got the wrong kind, I'd be like, all right, well, this isn't gonna. I might need you to. I'll give you a little more money to get yourself something as well, but you might need to make another trip. I'll draw a picture for you here, okay?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So a right that I've made. Oh wow, said that backwards. A wrong that I've made right. Yeah, easy cow. Dem bats.
Okay.
Dem bats. So you've heard tales of the bats at the bag end of Amanda here in the Smith house over and over. I think there's even a short clip on our Instagram of a bat invading a podcast episode.
Yeah.
Is that still in an episode?
Yes,
or did we
I think
stop
so.
that and edit it out? Okay. All right. Well,
I think we left some bat confusion in. Tell me if I'm wrong.
it's in there somewhere. I mean, we were sitting here and we go, oh, jeez. And there was a bat flying around.
Bat.
So we inherited this house. We didn't inherit it. We bought this house and we inherited a bat problem that was undisclosed to us. And it made me very, very angry for a long time. And a lot of different unpleasant things that we've had to deal with. Guano, bats flying out of fans in your bedroom at night, bats getting stuck behind our shutters only to hear them for days and weeks trying to figure out where the sound is coming from. Lots of really horrific things, okay?
Yeah.
Like truly, like not what you want in your home, crawling in walls, squeaking and scratching in the wall right behind your bed, all kinds of fun things. Oh, and then being out on a nice summer night, enjoying a fire, and then just watching 90 bats just plow out of your house. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
No one should have to deal with that. It's not a cool thing. So I've had a lot of help from a lot of people. I want to thank my dad. Well, first, I want to thank Sarah. The very first bat we ever had, again, just flew out of a vent up in our bedroom.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw the thing, threw the covers over my head, and I did not come out.
Uh-huh.
I did not come out. Sarah got the bat outside on her own without me, and I literally hid under the sheets like a child. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank Sarah, first of all. I also want to thank my father. My dad is not afraid of bats for whatever reason. He thinks they're cool, and he has been known to play with live bats. Now, I don't recommend that. I'm not promoting that. It frightens me, but it's not shocking if you know my dad. I've never really seen him be afraid of anything. I, on the other hand, will shriek if I hear a noise I don't quite understand. So, my dad, for helping me get bats out when I literally couldn't figure. I just couldn't function as an adult. Has nothing to do with being a man or a woman, just an adult, and I couldn't adult. So, my dad. I also want to thank my in-laws because when we found out how much bat removal is, because here in Ohio, little brown bats are protected, which is a good thing. It's a fine thing. I'm not sure why they should be protected if they've invaded your home, but they are. When we found out how much it costs to properly and legally get bats out of your home, I had to go to them and say, hey, can we work out another loan situation? And lastly, I want to thank myself. I want to thank me for overcoming the fear. You saw it, Ez. You remember when that bat flew around here and then it went upstairs, didn't it? That's the other part of the story no one really sees. Yep. And it landed. It landed in a spot it always does in that room because it thinks it can get back up into the vent. Well, that's before I put chicken wire on it, little guy. You can't get through chicken wire.
That's right.
And what did I do, Ez? I got a little stepladder.
You got it.
Put my head over my head, my hood over my head. Jeez. Sunglasses on, and I grabbed that guy. Got him outside.
Yep.
I also, just this past month, so after all this process, dude, 5 years of hard work and lots of money, and they're gone, right? Almost all gone. Mm-hmm. There was one small spot where they were still getting in and out. We're all set to get a new roof. We're all set to use insurance money to take care of the damages, which is, again, insane. We're all set to do that, but I got to make sure the bats are gone first because I'm afraid if while they're working they uncover even a couple of them, they're going to stop, and it's just going to be a nightmare. Yeah. So I noticed some guano coming down again from a spot it's come from, and I watched. I sat out with a flashlight, staring at the back of my house to see where they were coming in and out of. I identified the spot. My friend. And then I said to myself, just something needs to be done. Either I need to bag them and accidentally throw the bag in the trash, or I need to block off their entry. I just got to do it. I couldn't go through with the bagging thing in the end. It didn't feel right. Made me feel sick. Made Sarah feel nervous. Dad was like, that's probably a good idea. He said, I would have done it with you, son, but you're probably doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So if you've been to the party too, you know how high our gutter on the main part of the house is. It's up there. It's 20 feet at least.
Yeah.
Got the ladder out, threw it up as high as the ladder would go. I climbed to the top. I'm scared of heights, man. I don't like getting on ladders either. I get sick on ladders. You start looking around, you're like, you get vertigo. You're like, well, maybe it's not that far. Maybe I can fly. I'm a bat too. I took some chicken wire up there, found the spot, stapled that shut. The bats are gone, my friend. Emails will be sent next week.
Let's go.
To begin the bat cleanup and the re-roofing process. And this house will belong to the Smiths once more. Not a bat, not a rat with wings, but the Smiths. And I tell you what, man, I feel like I got them ruffians out. I feel like the Shire has been reclaimed.
Yep.
And I can't wait to sit in my bed, the brand new roof on, totally sealed, new soffits, new gutters, and to sit there and go, I might be paying this off for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
But man, I can sleep at night.
Yep. Wow.
Them
great.
Bats.
Them bats.
As how can our friends share the load other than going onto YouTube, hitting subscribe, liking, commenting, telling their friends to get on YouTube? You got to see this video they did about the Tolkien professor, man. You got to go check out the cake they're making, all right? Ez is a baker. How can they help us out?
Well, yeah, that's one of the best ways right now because we're definitely trying to grow that, and that would be really awesome if you guys wouldn't mind giving us a subscribe, even if you're not really big into YouTube. It just helps to kind of.
I'm not, and so it's if you can find a couple things you enjoy though, it's cool. Yeah,
exactly. So and there's some fun exclusive stuff on there, and we go a little more crazy over there than we do. We try to keep it nice and mild. People are like, "Wait, you guys are mild on this podcast? What?" Yeah, but
that's true.
Well, that's scary. That maybe you don't want to go to the YouTube page.
Yeah,
but
that's very true.
There's that. You can also we're going to be follow the Instagram and Twitter. I think mostly the Instagram though. We're going to be doing some more giveaways on there. Got to get with Lane. We're going to have probably we'll talk about this next episode, but we are probably going to have a bit of a break just because we've got a baby on the way.
Yep.
And we've got it's a good breaking point. We're going to be finished with the series, and it's kind of crazy. So in the meantime, I have a few surprises for everyone. So we'll talk about that down. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to this summer. Will be full of surprises. So make sure you're following the Instagram, the Facebook page, Twitter, and that's at UpTalkinTolkien. And you'll get all the updates and things like that. It's just a good way to kind of keep informed on that. We'll also let you know what's going on here on the podcast. But I guess I'm kind of telling you there's going to be a break where the podcast won't be airing for a bit in the summer, just as we're getting ready for The Hobbit and things like that. So I'll be filling that time with some YouTube content and some fun Patreon things, and then other giveaways and fun stuff on social media. So make sure you're checked in to those spots. So.
Just check in, if you will.
Just
give it a check.
Oh, and while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and if you are posting something Lord of the Rings related, feel free to tag LOTR on Prime.
Yeah.
And tag us in that post as well. If there's some communication going on, or there's some back and forth, or you hear something we don't hear, tag us in it so we can go check it out.
Let them know, baby. Let them know. If you want to send us anything other than hate mail, the Shire. P.O. Box 96, Amanda, Ohio 43102. They do filter out hate mail. We haven't gotten any pieces yet, but just in case Ezra tries to send me an angry letter, I do know the postmaster. Sharky ain't around here, and they'll destroy anything that's bad. Okay. We're into fortnight farewells, formerly weekly well wishes, which is weird.
Right. That's crazy. That's great.
We want to thank you for saving the Shire. Or at least beginning to. That's an allusion to Samwise Gamgee. Next time, we'll be saying farewell to these characters and this story that we've grown to love so much. And we'll be doing it with a special friend as we dig into Chapter 9, The Grey Havens.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing that friend here in just a little bit.
Couple hours. Literally
couple hours.
5 or 6 hours from now.
Oh, it's been crazy end of the journey, and I love it. So, if you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or
good.
send us a shadow fax.
We'll see you in a fortnight. Actually, we're going to record in a couple hours. And remember, Frodo lives.